Good evening, everybody, Dolphin fans, everybody. Look who's here. OT is here. We're back to drive you all crazy. The negative Nancys are back. We're so happy to be here. I'm
Negative
here.
Nancy's, you mean realistic?
Realism. I'm one of your co-hosts, Fin Stanza. With me usually is Greg Maney, but today we're going to call him sometimes Greg. And the regular person in 2025 is going to be Brett Lagasse, who, just like Vic Fangio, was always right. How you doing, Brett?
Oh, good. I love it. I love it. I'm actually, I'm not even mad Philly won. I'm actually living in the area, growing up in the area. I've seen the Eagles win more than the Dolphins, but that's okay.
Yeah, when you fly in and out, I've always wondered, are you closer to Philly or are you closer to Baltimore?
Well, it's about the same.
About the same?
Yeah. I think technically closer to Baltimore, but it's how you have to cross over the bay to get there. But it's about the same.
Okay.
I'm actually, yeah, let's say a half hour. Well, I don't know.
Is it more? Is Delaware?
Splitting
Is
hairs.
Delaware more Eagles country or more Ravens country?
So I actually just showed somebody the map. Delaware is not very big. We have 3 counties, and
I know.
so from Newcastle County down, which is up by the Philly, New Jersey area, down to about middle of Delaware is Philly, and maybe a little bit further. And then southern Delaware becomes a part of like the Salisbury, which gets looped into the Baltimore. So it's kind of like tied in. Like the Salisbury, we have WBOC, which is Salisbury News down southern Delaware where I'm at, and that's Baltimore. And then when I grew up, I was born in '87. And so I grew up with the Eagles fans, Randall Cunningham, and then the Ravens became a team on what, 95 when I was about 8 years old. And I still remember having the magazine to this day. And on the cover, it was the picture of the Ravens. And I forgot who the quarterback was to start. Was it Gerback? But it was like, here come the Ravens. Oh, it might have been Testaverde. But it was like, here come the Ravens. And it was like introducing them as a team. And I never became a fan of them. I was already watching Dan Marino at the time. I was like, oh, I'm a Dan Marino fan. So
Before, guys,
I made a mistake.
guys, our sometimes co-host Greg Maney is here. Greg Maney, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
You got worried about you. The fact you know you're running behind when the guy who's usually 25 minutes early for the podcast is late, and the guy who's usually 25 minutes late for the podcast is early.
The one is usually slammed.
So, Greg, where are you this week?
I told I just got to Memphis. I'm actually in a town called South Haven, Mississippi, which is just across the state line from Memphis. So,
Very cool.
I was when I sent you guys the text. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be late because I got to check in, and I don't get to the hotel till like 7 o'clock. So
Okay.
I was like, all right.
Well, you're in FedEx country. You're from Memphis is true FedEx country.
Absolutely,
Every package goes through there or Indianapolis, but mostly through there.
But yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm like 10 miles from the hub. So
I know. So it's good to see you both. So how you been doing, Greg? You're doing well?
doing well, doing well. A little depressed that the season's over. You know, we don't see a football game for another 6 8 months. You know, or whatever it is. But there's plenty to talk
We're
about.
actually 203 days away. We're 203 days away from kickoff. That's exactly where we are. So we're here to talk football and how we're looking forward to the 2026 season. The people are wondering what about 2025? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that at one point. But since none of us have really had the opportunity to talk about it, except between the three of us, what were your thoughts on how the Super Bowl went?
But so
Greg, go first.
Oh, Greg, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know, I was surprised. I was surprised at how poorly Mahomes played.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought it was going to be close. I thought there was a chance that Philadelphia could win. I texted Brett, before the game. I was like, the what Kansas City does. Okay, Kansas City basically plays to keep the game close, and then says Mahomes win the game at the end of the game. All right. That's why they're 17-0 in their last 17 one-score games.
Yeah.
All right. They play to keep it close, and then they say, okay, we got Mahomes. He's better than your guy. Our chances of winning are very good. So the game plan of everybody coming in to play Kansas City was, let's keep the game close. Let's get the game in the fourth quarter, and maybe we have a shot. Well, that's a bad game plan because you know what? Kansas City's got the exact same game plan, and they're better than you at it. Okay, so what's the game plan for this? Essentially, they need to be blown out. If you're going to win this game, blow them out. You need to score quickly. You need to score often. You need to have big chunk yardage plays. Just attack, attack, attack. And I give Philadelphia Eagles a lot of credit for that because that's what they did, especially offensively. And then defensively, okay, all of this crap that you hear about football starting on the offensive and defensive lines, that the game is won up front, is a bunch of bull. Okay? All right? I'm just going to say that straight up. If anybody you hear say that, they lose all credibility. The game is won from the back to the front. All right? The defensive secondary tells you what you need to do on offense to attack it. The defensive secondary controls the front seven. It controls the front seven. It tells you where the defensive linemen are going to go. It tells you where the linebackers are going to go. It tells you what blitz is coming. The secondary has to compensate for all of that. The
Right.
quarterback does not come up to the line of scrimmage and look at the defensive lineman and say that we're going to run this play. No, they look at the secondary. All right, the secondary informs them. And what Fangio did, all right, to generate pass rush was he took the quick pass away from Mahomes. Mahomes got confused. All right, he held on to the ball too long. Average time of pressure for Philadelphia in that game was 3.3 seconds,
which is plenty of time to get rid of the ball.
which is plenty of time to get rid of the ball if you get rid of the ball when you're supposed to in that 2.5 to 2.8 second range. But Fangio screwed them up. And the reason why Fangio's defense was number one is because their secondary was intact, their secondary was talented, and he was able to scheme everything else in front of it.
And he played
And-
rookies. And he played two
and he-
rookies.
What he was able to do,
Yeah.
Greg, is
Two
he was able to
rookies.
let guys do their job because his front seven were not hot garbage like we had in Miami, and the
Oh.
defensive line did their damn job. Now, our defensive line did their job. It's just they got a plethora of injuries, but our linebackers were awful, god awful.
Brooks was not terrible. Brooks was
No,
terrible.
last year.
Oh, last
with
year.
Fangio, yeah, they were god awful.
They were god awful.
No, and basically when your starting quarterback is cornerback is Eli Apple for most of the year,
Yeah, well,
you're going
yeah,
to be in trouble in the secondary. Okay,
Yeah.
So Fangio works from the back front. Okay, that's the way defensive coordination. That's the way defensive systems are set up. And when he talked last year about not having enough talent, he talked about that was in regards to the defensive secondary. All right.
that and the
If you look at
linebackers.
if you look at Philadelphia's defense this year, they were mid-range in sacks and stuff like that. The Dolphins set record in sacks last year. Why? Because he had to completely change his philosophy. He had to rely on the front to basically protect the back.
And
Fangio in Philadelphia this year had the back end to protect the front end. And
Yeah.
that's what he wants to do. That's how you play defense in today's NFL.
We talked about that before when our secondary was actually good, when we had X and all that. Our pass rush was good. It just naturally was good. Our linebackers weren't as exposed because the secondary was good.
Correct.
20 years ago, Fangio's defense looked a lot different. Fangio ran a little bit
Yes.
different defense. But Fangio is one of the guys who adapted through the years and saw, hey, look, the NFL is changing. Now, I'm actually going somewhere at this point, too. The NFL is changing. It's going pass heavy. Well, instead of bitching to say back in my day, fine. My front seven, just give me guys who do their job up front, who rush the passer. I'll set them up. I might do wide nine alignment for guys who aren't the best one-on-one, which he did. And I was talking with a buddy of mine, like Nolan Smith got better as a pass rusher, but they had guys in rotation who were just average pass rushers. And he put them in a wide line alignment and let his interior guys take up double teams, which their interior defensive line is fantastic, and a rotation. And
Milton Williams was ridiculous in that.
well, that's who he wanted to trade for. Greer told him no. So the defensive line did their job. So he was able to become exotic with his coverages, and he was able to take away, like you said, the short passes and everything. And then what he did with Mahomes, he knew that the left tackle was a guard. He knew that. He knew Thuney was better inside, and that they were hurting. They had an injury at left tackle, and they were in a pinch, and that's what happens. And he attacked it by overloading that side or
Correct.
sliding the pressure that side.
His scheme allowed for the left tackle to be one-on-one with the rusher.
Yep.
Okay. His scheme dictated that. All right. And I want to and I'm going to take a step back to the AFC Championship game. Okay. The last play of the game where Buffalo threw, Josh Allen throws up the Hail Mary. All right. Spags is really good defensive coordinator too. He plays from the back forward. Okay. What happened on that last play? Okay. Cam Newton does a great breakdown of this. All right. Maybe,
I saw that.
And my brother and I were talking about it at dinner today before we got to the hotel. He lives here in Memphis, right? So,
have you gambled yet?
No, we just got to town. I mean, we just got to town, went to dinner, and I came to the hotel. But I'm going to.
Where is he tonight? Where is he tonight? You get him on the show. You should get him on the show once in a while.
But I offered, and he's like, "Nah, not today." But so we were talking about it. But basically, what Cam Newton said, and is right, is Spags disguised who the Mike was. So Josh Allen went to the line of scrimmage, called out the wrong Mike. All right, the offensive line blocks for that Mike. That Mike drops back. They bring somebody else off, and if he should have been identified as the Mike, and basically he had a free rush. Spags created that instant pressure, okay, by using his secondary to disguise what he was doing up front. That's what you do, okay? And they went to the Super Bowl for it, all right? And Spags in this game, in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts' interception, all right, basically was a confusion of the protection call,
yep.
All right, and it came from the secondary. So I mean, I hear all of these things going up and leading up to the Super Bowl and things like that, and nobody talked about the secondaries. Nobody talked about how the game was going to be won. Nobody talked about how Kansas City tries to keep the game close so that Mahomes can win it. All right, and how you can't beat them doing the same thing. And it was just like,
can I ask you guys both a question though? Because obviously that was obviously the narrative was offensive line, defensive line, because what happened on the offensive line, even though with the same injuries, happened to them against Tampa, but Todd Bowles did it a little bit differently. Yes, they had a great secondary there, but they blitzed like crazy in that. They actually did an analysis of how many yards he ran backwards in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But where was, for Andy Reid, who is of the Philadelphia build, right? Like he's the one who built the foundation there many, many years ago. Where was the adaptation of, like, I know we always say about run the game, all that, but where was the adaptation of the offense to do, because you can't say on every single play whether it was a check that you never saw Pacheco. You never saw Pacheco once. Hunt got the ball more than Pacheco. You never, and why was it? Also, if you noticed in the game, Mahomes, many of his throws, he just threw them to the ground. Like even when he had 2-3 seconds, he just got rid of it. So where was the adaptation coming out of the half? Because a lot of people thought in the half, even though they were down, they might score right going into the half, and then they were going to get the ball. But they kept on playing. They kept on doing the same thing that our team does, and I never felt like he adapted to the game. And it can't just be, well, what it was it you guys both think? Like you're talking about one of the GOATs of head coaching. Like there's a reason why they got to 7 straight AFC championships. Why is it that he never adapted to any ability? It can't be that there was no way to get through this defense. It's a game of chess. He was playing checkers and the other team was playing chess.
Fangio adapted. Fangio didn't run the same thing over and over again. He kept adjusting it. He kept rotating coverages. He kept changing it. Like you see Cooper DeJean, he was all over the field. He was playing underneath. He's playing deep. So the way they were using their secondary, like if you watch it, their corners and safeties, they were moving all over. They weren't just like having the same assignments. They weren't like doing the same thing.
They were disguising it so well.
And their linebacker play is so underrated in coverage. They did a great job of taking every angle away. And it just like Greg said, it forced Mahomes to hold the ball, and that's when the pressure happened. And people don't understand it. Yeah, the Philadelphia's defensive line is very good. Their interior defensive line with Jalen Carter, Williams, and Davis, they're all a beast, right? They get pressure.
How did they get those players again?
Good drafting, actually. And they lost.
Drafting?
They lost a
Drafting?
great Fletcher Cox and some other. Anyway, so they completely rebuilt and went back to the Super Bowl before we won a playoff game. So what they did, they what they do is they rotate their guys and they keep the D line fresh, so they're able to get pressure and stay rushing. And the thing, like Greg saying, they forced Mahomes to hold the ball. And there was a lot of opens and checkdowns, but I think once they got in Mahomes' head, it was to the point where Mahomes wasn't settling in, and he wasn't seeing it. So I think Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will both say we did a bad job, and we can't allow that. But it also shows they're the only team to ever go 3 straight after winning 2 in a row. Right, they're the only team to get there the third time after winning 2 in a row. No other team has. Patriots went 3, but they lost 1. But and it's very hard to win 3 in a row because you can only do so much and change so much. It's just like I feel like the Eagles knew what they were going to get out of them, and I think they just wanted to get back after them.
Yeah, if you watch some of the all 22 of the Super Bowl, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen some plays scripted here and there. The safeties and the linebackers for Philadelphia's defense were jumping quick routes. All right. And Mahomes was not recognizing it because the deeper intermediate routes and some of the deeper stuff were breaking wide open. Okay, initially. All Mahomes had to do was basically get off this first read and hold it just that split second more, and he could have made plays. And him not reading some of this means that Fangio really got in his head.
Mm-hmm.
He just really got into his head because I actually think that Andy Reid was looking at some of this stuff going, I don't know what Patrick Mahomes is doing right here. I don't know, if they're doing this, he should be doing that. And
Yeah.
and he wasn't doing that. And
it's like one of those things where it's like it's easy to tell you to do that. Then when you get on the field, sometimes it's hard to do and hard to see.
Do you want to hear something crazy?
But to make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, that's hard to do.
That's hard to do.
Really hard
but you know
to
what's
do.
interesting about it, and as I think about it, the last 3 coaches in playoff games to give him fits? What do they all have in common? Vic Fangio, Todd Bowles, and Bill Belichick. Veteran defensive minds he eats the new guys for lunch. So when it's a new guy in Baltimore, a new guy in Buffalo, or a new guy, Gannon was newer and he was still a young tyke in Philly. When Todd Bowles ate him for lunch, when Belichick was there with Brady, he ate him for lunch when they were going there in the NFC Championship. They couldn't get by them much, and now you see Vic Fangio, these veteran head coaches who know how to disguise and adapt and who have the history. He's very good when he's new to a guy. They feel intimidated. These defensive veterans, like I'm making a joke, but like I think someone like a Brian Flores would have been able to disguise something with him this game. I'm telling you, he looked. He's done it before. He literally looked like, honestly, he looked like honestly, it was the worst game I've ever seen him play. Like he could not. He literally couldn't. When he got rid of the football, he couldn't even make he couldn't even get the ball to the player. He looked terrified. He looked scared,
and he was missing easy reads. Like, rush is coming. Pacheco's wide
throws.
Open. Yeah, he missed some easy ones. Pacheco's wide open.
Throws.
And that's where, like, I hate when people say, like, they'll do it about McDaniel. Oh, McDaniel doesn't adjust this and that. And I'm like, there was a for that exact situation that they were being attacked, the look was there to it, throw it. Well, Mahomes, Pacheco was going out in the flat in the second half. He had I forgot that number 2 tight end. Like their guys are there. The looks were there, but your quarterback has to do it.
Noah Gray.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like he had him as like almost like a check valve. Like, hey, pressure's coming, dump it off here, and because they were leaving the side open because they were like, they're not. Patrick's not seeing it, and then by the time he runs to there, we have somebody spying to adjust. So they just it was a hell of a. It was less of Patrick Mahomes played bad. And Andy Reid got out coached, which is very rare. But I think it was more of like Fangio just like having one hell of a game plan, showing that he's a hell of a defensive coordinator on a warpath, and Fangio seeing something last year to the 2 times that they played Kansas City. Right, so it's what he saw from them in Germany, and his defense did a hell of a job. And with a plethora of injuries, his defense did a fantastic job in Kansas City, the bitter cold.
The
So
only
he
reason
saw
people
something.
the only reason before you go, Greg, that people were hard on Fangio was the one Tennessee game. That was it. If that game was the one game, and that's what people rely on for why Fangio was screwed up.
And what is he supposed to do? Like, he's doing what he's supposed to. He's calling the defense with the lead. Greg,
he didn't have the talent on the field.
When you have a defense and you have a lead, you start getting a soft shell. And your hope is that you keep everything in front of you, force long drives.
Well, he did that in the fourth quarter.
I'll give you the nickel and dime. I'll give you that. The clock's you're going to chew clock, and you're going to have less time to come back. And it was blown assignments led to touchdowns. He can't play for them.
He can't fix talent. He can't.
Yeah,
fix
like
talent.
so, and that's so. Yeah.
Well, well, first there was a stat before the Super Bowl that I think Mahomes was 8-1 against Fangio's defenses up until
Fangio. I think has almost never beat him. Almost. Who cares?
So
who cares?
Well, no, it doesn't matter in that sense because Fangio had lesser talented teams when he faced them all those times.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was the head coach at Denver and things like that. I mean, those teams weren't very good. Right?
If Fangio was the defensive coordinator, I bet you this: if he had Patrick Surtain, the second, when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, if he went in to be the defensive coordinator for Sean Payton against the Broncos, I guarantee you he'd find a way with that defense in Denver to stop Mahomes.
Yeah,
but
what
I was laughing at is the shell coverage and stuff like that. Okay, you know, sometimes football coaches are just outsmart themselves. Every now and then, you just tell Worthy, run far, and Mahomes is going to throw you the ball.
Yeah.
Okay, and basically at the end of the game, it seemed like a playground play to me. That Mahomes is just like, just run straight down the damn field, and I'm going to throw you the ball.
It really was. And I told my wife, I was like, he's just showing his arm off at this point.
Yeah. you know, I mean, at some point, you know, Andy Reid's going to just like, how the hell with all of this? Okay. You run fast that way, you throw the ball that far, and let's run under it. Okay? Don't make it complicated.
No, but you know what's crazy about that?
It's just they didn't have an answer.
No, but the funny part about that is they didn't use Worthy till the fourth quarter. Like, at that point, when you were down a couple nothing, literally all you have to do, like you just said, is hike the ball and throw the ball. Like, the guy's fast enough that he'll get it. He'll get it.
Right.
But I feel like we're talking about how bad the Chiefs' offense was, but no one was talking about the Eagles' offense. And here's my take.
They weren't great. They weren't great.
They
were okay. They were nothing special.
The offense was opportunistic. Here's the thing.
Yeah, but they weren't special.
Hang on. So the offense had a back-breaking touchdown after an interception, that 45-yard, 45-yard touchdown, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see. That's killer instinct. That was cold-blooded by Jalen Hurts, calm as can be, who's the dude never wavers, which is part of the reason I actually was fine drafting him in 2020. But he laid that up there, confident as could be, confident in his guy to go make a play. He made a play. Again, Devonta Smith just did a fantastic job of going to get the ball. Touchdown, and that was the backbreaker. It wasn't like, well, let's run the clock out. We got this fantastic running back and run game. Let's run the ball. No. So Greg said to me, it goes back to his point he made earlier. If the Eagles want to win, they're going to have to score and keep the foot on the pedal.
Yeah, for sure.
Right before that touchdown, Greg said they're going to keep the foot on the throttle. Touchdown. And he was right. That's exactly what you have to do. You can't let's run the ball. You can't let Mahomes come back because they'll kill you. If they get a rhythm, they'll kill you, and they'll do it fast. And you can't do death by 1,000 paper cuts.
But by the way,
notice that they didn't run the ball heavy. You notice that as great as Saquon is, he had 2.5 yards per carry. He had 50 yards. Jalen Hurts had 70 yards rushing. Right, Jalen Hurts was the offense, and he played out of his mind in the Super Bowl. That's two Super Bowls in a row that he played fantastic.
Great.
And he made, and the numbers aren't like 400 yards, or whatever, but he played he was very, very efficient. And it was, to me, it's going to sound crazy. It was Joe Montana-esque in some of the games he's played in, some of the Super Bowls he's played in, just efficient. And but
remember, he had a great Super Bowl. But if you look back, you look back, if it wasn't for his defense in the divisional round, I'll tell you that divisional round, Stafford outplayed him. Like Stafford was.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying he played perfect, but that's going to happen.
No, I'm just saying. But
in the
Jalen Hurts
biggest
doesn't have to be the best player on the field for them to win.
But here's the thing: when he got hurt against Washington, the offense was not the same. They couldn't run the ball.
Well, you can't put Kenny Pickett in. What are you going to?
Well, no, I'm just saying they couldn't run the ball anymore because they dialed in to stop the run. And so when people are saying, "Oh, well, the Chiefs dialed in to stop Saquon," that's why they had to throw the ball so much. It's a load of crap. The game plan was always Jalen Hurts throwing the football because Kellen Moore knew I can't run the ball against the Chiefs. We're going to lose. We can't play keep away. We better score points.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what Greg's been saying.
But Greg's been saying that forever. So
and I want to segue that to the Dolphins when we get a second, because
we will.
That's because there's a whole lot of crap going on with that, with offensive line. And Mekhi Becton, who was an awful guard with the Jets, was one of their starting guards. They have one first-round pick from 2013. They drafted and developed their guys in mid-late rounds. They have a guy who was a rugby player in Australia playing left tackle, and all they did was develop him. They just develop guys. This whole nonsense about we need offensive line. We need to get a beefed up offensive line. We need to fix the offensive line. It's a load of crap. You need consistent players in the offensive line that aren't made of glass.
Okay, I'll disagree with you on one thing. You need players who can actually stand upright on the offensive line.
Well, I can,
and we'll get to it in a sec. And you have to draft people for their position. You can't be playing. You can't fit a square peg in a round hole.
Well, I'll go throw a rock and find a new right guard. I mean, give me a free agent list. I'll throw darts at the names, and I've already found one better than Eichenberg. It's not hard to do. He's not.
Of course, that's my point.
It's not hard. It's not hard to replace a bad player.
We'll get to the Dolphins. Honestly, though, it was so hard because my son. People keep on telling him, "Why do you are you going to pick your own team, or are you just going to follow in your father's footsteps?" And a couple weeks, 6-7 weeks ago, I'm going to cheer for the Eagles now. So he was like, "Okay, I'm just going to pick any team." He didn't know they were going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick them. And now, but by the way, let me ask you a quick question because we'll segue to the Dolphins now. What effect do you think? And we'll get to it when we talk about the Dolphins in a sec. That Sirianni, who is very polarizing in Philly, him giving up the play call sheet had a difference in how the team performed this year. Do you think, because we're going to talk about the Dolphins because of Bobby Slowick and the whole thing with Darrell Bevel, but what do you think? Do you think that Nick Sirianni became a better coach this year because he focused on being a head coach and not managing the play calling like he used to? Do you think it made a difference to him?
Doug Peterson won us for both the Eagles and fell apart. I mean, they're built well. The culture's built well. The only time that they were a complete train wreck was when Chip Kelly came in and forced his way to have control and Howie Roseman said, "That's fine, go ahead." And then when Chip Kelly showed to be an idiot, they were like, "Okay, see you later. Howie Roseman, I'll take over." So, but Chip Kelly wanted to have to say, and he thought it was drafting for college. So normally I'm fine with coaches having to say, but I don't. Sirianni's got the mentality to survive in Philly. I think it was smart. It was leadership to say, "Hey, we're struggling with me calling plays. I'll let someone else take over." I can't say that he's been a better head coach for it. I don't know, but Kellen Moore did a good job of the offense. But who does he replace him with? I mean, we'll find out. That's going to be the biggest thing there.
Anything for you, Greg, on that comment?
I don't know. Is he a better head coach for it? Well, maybe he recognized some limitations in himself and basically, was able to give up some of that. But I also think when you get a stud like Saquon Barkley, your play calling becomes a little easier. All right. It's not that they had a bad offensive line last year, but they just couldn't run the ball because their running backs suck. And you know what? I mean, just segueing into the Dolphins.
We don't have a starting running back.
Yeah. Maybe if you had better running backs, you'd run the ball better. I mean, it seemed to work in Baltimore. It seemed to work in Philadelphia. Miami's philosophy is, you can't run the ball. Let's get a guard.
It worked in San Fran.
By the way, you segued me perfectly. DSG is about to get upset. So let's talk about the Miami Dolphins and our mid-running game and our mid-running back. our third wide receiver, Devon Achane. No, we'll get to him in a few minutes.
But it's like I said it. Greg said it. We both wanted Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley.
I wanted them.
We wanted a good, even Josh Jacobs. I wanted a good running back. I wanted someone who'd be, and they're like, no, we don't need him. We don't need him. We got Achane and Mostert. Well, Mostert has never been a starter.
No.
He's been average everywhere he's gone. He's been a good player in spurts, and that's fine. He's a good leader, a good player in spurts. Mostert has a role. Achane has a role. And if you have a Saquon Barkley, then you have those two mixed in. That's a good backfield.
Yeah.
But you don't. You don't have a Saquon. You have a Derrick Henry. Now look at the running backs that they had in Baltimore. Look at how much better they got with Derrick Henry, because now the defense is gassed, they're beat up, and now you can bring those guys coming in, and now all of a sudden the fast guys, the shifty guys are now the typical third down backs, and now you can make some things happen. And that's what we could do with Achane and Mostert, but we don't have a true stud running back. We need a number one running back.
We're going to get there.
But we're going to get to that point because I want to talk about how we need to be a running game, a running offense to win in today's NFL. I'm going to get to how that's a load of crap too.
Okay, I'm going to get, before you go, Greg, I just want to make speaking of Derrick Henry, I want to give you guys a quick stat. In games where Derrick Henry runs for over 75 yards, do you know how many games the Baltimore Ravens lost in 2024? Guess how many games they lost where he ran for 75 yards or more?
Zero.
Do you know how many yards he ran for in the game against Baltimore, against the Bills? 74. They stopped giving him the ball. If they would have given him the ball a little bit more in that Buffalo game, I'm telling you this right now, they're in the AFC Championship. They didn't utilize their running back. They utilized their quarterback to run the ball. And that's just always how I think about that dynamic.
Again, if you want to score the quick, though, you still need to be able to throw the football.
But you didn't need that. You need to score quick against Buffalo in that game. You didn't need to score quick. In that game, it was a tight defensive game. You didn't need to score quick.
I don't know. It's to me, that's how they're built too, is to run the football. But at the same time, they run the ball well too because of Lamar Jackson. At the same time, like the Eagles,
But
the reason that they even had a decent run game last year, even though it wasn't great, it was better than it should have been because Hurts takes a defender out of the box. It's always been a thing with running quarterbacks. That running quarterback being a threat always helps the run game with that threat.
So I'm gonna give you guys the floor, and then I'll jump in. I want you guys to tell us when you look at the Eagles, you look at the NFL, how it ended, you look where the Dolphins are heading into the combine, free agency, the draft. I made the joke in our title today is we're looking forward to 2026. What happened? But wait, what happened in 2025? Tell me where you guys stand mindset-wise with the Dolphins at this moment moving forward.
It's a waste of season. Keeping Chris Greer is just a waste of time. He's already proven that he can't build a winning football team. He's had 3 head coaches. He's had too many chances, and he's blaming everybody else but himself. And he's missed. He's blown all of his picks, trading up for Waddle when he could have got Devonta Smith and traded up 2 spots with like a 3rd and 4th round instead of trading up your first in 2022. Missing on players like getting Austin Jackson. Thought he was going to be your franchise left tackle instead of getting Justin Jefferson. You move in the right tackle. You trade up over Creed Humphrey. You get Liam Eichenberg, and you move him to guard. And then you force Mike McDaniel to start him this year because he has to start. Now you're leaving him on the starting lineup when they wanted Robert Jones and Eichenberg benched or cut. And Greer wanted him to start regardless because he can't admit fault. So you trade up because there's a tackle run and a guy who can't even play tackle, so you move him to guard, and so now you're missing, and then you overspend on Tyreek, you overspend on Armstead, you overspend on Chubb, all Waddle. Because you can't draft well, because you get Waddle, who's not a number 1 receiver, who's a good receiver, an explosive receiver, and I love having Waddle. He's a good player, but he's not a true number 1, not with 2 at quarterback. So you don't and to me, the biggest pick he had, he blew it, and then tried to get his head coach to fix all of his screw ups, and it's not going to work. And to me, it was McDaniel took a dead end job, and that's a load of crap. And McDaniel took a dead end job, and to me, it's just a waste. You're just keeping it going for another year when you know damn well there's no cap space. They don't have that great of draft picks, and they have no vision. Robert Hunt, Christian Wilkins all walked fine, but you had no plan to replace them. The Eagles lost Fletcher Cox and replaced him with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. That's having a plan in the division. They don't lose guys like that and like, oh, well, I don't know what to do now. I'll just sign this 38-year-old Calais Campbell who played well, but that's not a long-term replacement. So the Eagles won with a young team because they have a GM that has a head on his shoulders and has a vision. We have a GM who just doesn't get it. He just doesn't understand how to win in today's NFL. He might have won like 30 years ago, 20 years ago as a GM, but now, no, he's not going to. There's no way that he can dig himself out of the hole he's already dug himself in. There's way too many holes on his roster, and he's got to lose players to get money. He's got to lose Chubb to get money, or kick the can down the road for the next GM. I think this is a wasted year.
No,
Greg?
I mean, at some point, being bad at drafting hurts you, and that's what we're seeing now. Oh, excuse me. Um, he just keeps missing on drafts. You cannot build a team through free agency and trades and things like that and expect to go anywhere. The Rams was an anomaly. All right.
Yeah.
That's not the way most successful franchises win a Super Bowl.
And look at them now. They drafted properly. And look at their defense now.
Wow, look at that defensive line. They got two guys in the draft there. Beasts.
And on our draft show, the day of the draft, I kept saying I want Verse to get to Miami. I want Verse to get to Miami, and look what happened. All right, here's something that people just don't think about with Miami. Okay, who's the last rookie of the year, offensively or defensively, that Miami Dolphins have had?
I don't even know.
Troy Stratford.
What year was that? 1971.
It's like 93 or something like that.
Yeah,
okay?
That's early 90s.
The Dolphins haven't had a person, offensive or defensive rookie of the year, in the voting in the top three since this century turn.
What was Waddle? Waddle's probably our closest.
Waddle was like fourth or fifth. All right,
Yeah.
Chop was fifth this year. Okay, how do you go that long without getting an impact rookie? All right, somebody that does something,
Well, when you give the wrong people to say to get Eddie Moore over Anquan Bolden, when your GM wanted Anquan Bolden and your head coach wanted Eddie Moore, what?
I mean, it's just.
I was like 14. I was like, that's dumb.
It's just it's miss after miss after miss, and it's not to say that everybody drafted is a bad player. Okay, they're just not that impact.
They're not generational. They're not generational.
They're not generational. They're not changing games like you want them to. Okay, and we've talked about this on our show in the past. All right, you named the best player at every position. All right, best cornerbacks on Miami. All right, free agency or a trade. Okay, best safeties. You got one that's drafted. All right, and then you had Jordan Poyer. Okay, we'll go there. All right, the linebackers are free agencies. All right, your defensive linemen are free agents and trades. Your offensive linemen, your top 2 or 3 are free agents.
They're all gone.
Your tight end is a free agent signing. You traded for your best wide receiver. Okay. Your quarterback and your running back right now, Devon Achane, who's not even a top 10 guy, are draft picks. It's just, I mean,
I think he's just washed. I think he's just like burned out and just done.
We're gonna get ripped to shreds on that one.
What's one?
He said Poyer was an op. I was like, he's just done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he played like he was an inside guy. He hurt Jalen Phillips.
It's just like,
And his,
when
his,
you
gir- his girlfriend
continue,
wants to rip us all a new one. She went crazy over them. Oh my god!
but
But
it's
no,
it, when
yeah.
when you draft that poorly, it's just and so what? If 2025 was kind of a wasted year, there's no real hope for 2026. There's nothing that
Uh,
gets
yeah.
you there,
Well,
you know?
that's what gets me because like I kept saying everybody's like, well, I don't want to have a losing year. I just don't want to start over. I just don't want to do this. I just don't want to have I don't want a tank year. And I'm like, listen, first of all, I'm just gonna say it now. Tank for anybody was stupid. That
Yeah.
was dumb. I did the research back then. I have to look it up again. In 2019, I showed how many quarterbacks you had to be in the top 5 to get. And my God, almost every single quarterback that was started, like Ben Roethlisberger was taking a 10. Josh Allen, I forgot where he was taken. 7, but the Bills traded up for him. Patrick Mahomes,
10.
Chiefs traded up for him. Like all these teams, not Steelers, they took him straight at 10.
Lamar was.
They traded up for him, and like they traded up for their quarterbacks. You don't have to throw your team away. Now, I understood why we got rid of some bad contracts, Kiko Alonso moves and stuff like that. I completely understood that, but it was stupid. So the whole tank for shut up. That was dumb. Like the Texans did it without tanking. They just had like a total like rebuild they were trying to do. But like
Well, they had to get rid of Deshaun
Well,
Watson. That's why.
yeah, that kind of like hurt them there. But like you don't have to tear it down. You do got to get rid of bad contracts. You might have it down a year or two, but it's not going to be like it doesn't have to be like it was in 19 for us. So it was just that was dumb. But the whole thing is there was no vision. We had the same needs that we had when Greer became the GM in 2016.
but
Now it's all the same stuff.
it is all the same stuff because they kept trying to build the team the wrong way.
Yeah.
And we talked about
It
this.
was fantasy
And
football. It became
it
fantasy
was,
football.
yes.
It was a pick 'em. It's like
And-
you have to every year you have to go. It's like a pick 'em draft. Like guys, I don't know if you realize this. We're going to talk about all the different elements of what we need. We have 23 players signed. We have to.
Yeah.
So we're in cap hell. Right now we're $12
Yes.
million over the cap, and we have to sign 29 players to our roster.
And this is why I keep telling people in 2023 they went all in, which is why they were fine with Fangio for just 1 year, which is why they were willing to move money around, which is why they're fine with trading for Ramsey and Chubb and all that. They knew in 2023 was going to be the year they went all in. And I'm just surprised that Ross is like, okay, we'll give you another year to screw it up even more and spend more of my money and get nothing out of it. Because Ross has realized people are going to buy tickets regardless.
Not this year.
No.
Because also I don't know about you, but Greg knows it because he's not really because of his being a season ticket holder. The perception of Greer and McDaniel. If you did a poll right now, yes, we have the players might think they have the best quality of everything. If you were to rate the most hated duo in the NFL
It's those two.
from fan bases, McDaniel and Greer are the bottom. Like there's a level of disdain from people because people are coming around to what we've been saying for a long time and that I've adapted to over the last year by listening to my two mentors over here. It's the truth.
It is.
Like I always told you this. McDaniel was the right head coach in 2019, not in 2023, because I don't believe in tanking, but because the team was younger and they could develop, he could develop with the team. Yeah. Unfortunately, you put him in a situation where they were in the win now mode, and he didn't have the experience or the coaching staff around him with experience to help guide him.
Yeah.
And he was still a little immature as a head coach, and he didn't adapt. That was the problem.
And the biggest thing with McDaniel, I've said it all the whole time. McDaniel took this job at the wrong time. This is the wrong job for him. Kyle Shanahan blocked him from interviewing with us a year before as an offensive coordinator. He knew it was a dead-end job. He knew it was a train wreck. Coaches in front offices around the NFL know that Miami is a train wreck. Knows that there's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of bickering back and forth of whose fault is this. And it's followed Greer. Greer even said in 19 when he took over, there's no messy thing anymore. Now you're going to know who made the pick and whose decision. We're all in the same step next. Well, Flores got in my way. And now it's, oh no, you're going to start Eichenberg, McDaniel, because that's who I want. That's who I drafted. So it's too much ego going on. And we have a terrible culture. And that bleeds down to the locker room. and it's always trying to patch things and fix things. And I don't know if that's from the owner direction or what, but it's always trying to like patch it up. Oh, hey, don't do that, or hey, let's coddle them a little bit. And what really gets me is I see media members saying, "Oh, fans attacking players is disrespectful." Yeah, they're crossing a line, but fans calling out players is going to happen, especially when you have a fan saying, when a fan told Javon Holland to get off my team. And one of the beat writers was like, being disrespectful to him and all that stuff. Like, listen, after Javon Holland retires and all, we're still going to be fans of the Dolphins. So we pay money for tickets and merchandise and stuff. We take pride in being our team. Go tell Philadelphia, go to the city of Philadelphia and tell them, hey, you're not a part of the team. I'll come visit you in the hospital after you tell them that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, you look at like something like that, and it's like these guys wouldn't survive in Philly. These guys were ready to get rid of Carson Wentz, and when they drafted Hurts, they weren't saying, "Oh, that's not fair to Wentz." They're like, "Good riddance. You keep getting hurt, we can't rely on you." Yeah. Imagine we did that. Imagine if they drafted Tua's replacement. 4 years into his fourth,
I'm
fifth
first
year.
in line. I have his jersey, but I'm first in line.
Everybody would be like, "Oh, not everybody. All of his fans. Oh, that's not fair to him. That's not right, man. You should give him time." Like teams who are used to winning, the Steelers want to get rid of their head coach. Or Steeler fans would get rid of their head coach.
There's a guy
because there's a standard right here, and they're playing below their standard, and they're like, no, that's not good enough. But here, Miami fans like, we're just happy to be here. We made the playoffs twice. We can go ahead and call it in now.
By the way, before Greg goes, do you know there's a fan, a super fan, who put a billboard right near the stadium, fire Tomlin. Like he literally, as a fan, paid money to put up a thing saying fire Tomlin.
Go ahead, and I'll bring him in as the.
Me too tomorrow.
Well, no. Pittsburgh's expectations is to challenge for a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Miami's expectations used to be that. That's why Don Shula got fired.
Now
that's why Jimmy Johnson came in to replace him. The goal was to, you got to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All right. And now Miami's fans are like, yay, let's sneak into the 7th seed. We're happy.
Back in.
Yeah. We're back in. Yeah. Wow. Okay. We were 8 and 9, but that last week we were still challenging for a playoff spot. Yay. It's like, come on,
Or you get the guys,
and going back to your comment about McDaniel and Greer, right? The shine's off now. Okay. In 2022, basically Miami had 2 miracle wins that completely changed and altered their season. It was the win in Baltimore and then the win at home the next week against Buffalo, right? Yeah. Baltimore, they came down from 3 touchdowns down in the fourth quarter, something that hadn't happened in the previous 700 plus games in that situation in the NFL. And then the next week, Buffalo had the ball for like 42 minutes and outgained Miami and things like that. And that hadn't happened in like 5 years. The team ended up winning that lopsided the stats. So those 2 miracle wins snuck Miami into the playoffs to get their ass kicked. All right.
By the way, guys, just how did they win those? How did they win that game in Baltimore? How did they win? Did they basically tell their wide receiver to run and throw the ball?
Yes. All right.
Run.
But anyway,
run.
Yeah. And then in 2023 we had the 70-point game. Okay.
Woo-hoo.
So all of those things labeled McDaniel as the genius and things like that. But the last 24 games or so that he's coached, he's just been all right. In the entire league, and the players are now seeing it for what it is. All of the discipline stuff that you heard coming out at the end of the season, people showing up late, people not paying fines, people doing this and that, and all. It basically is showing that it's not a disciplined organization.
No culture. The culture's off.
No, and you know what? You drive players away faster for that kind of stuff than any other thing. And I just don't see it turning around. I'm about as down on this football team as I've been in a long time.
There you go. There it is, Greg.
There it is, Brett.
And you know what? Before Greg jumps into it, it's coming from the media. The media says it, and when you watch football on TV, you see the lines
and your BFF,
and all that
Doug.
stuff.
Doug.
Yeah,
Doug loves
yeah.
me for it.
Like they all have that like tunnel vision offensive line. And like Greg was saying, it's all like secondary. The NFL rules are built around throwing the football. And I compared it to the NBA. The NBA changed the rules on scoring, right? They changed the rules on traveling. You take that extra step as long as you're driving to the basket, right? You can take 3 steps now before, as long as you're driving to the basket,
Yeah.
and it makes for higher scoring. And you've noticed around the NBA, from what I've noticed as a casual, just Sixers fan, so I don't know what winning is anymore. But
Is Joel Embiid still injured?
yeah, who knows? But
Load
like
management?
you watch it, like the scores are going up, and it makes it more entertaining and fun to understand it without making it like a gimmick league. Well, the same thing in the NFL. They changed the rules years ago to be a passing league. Why? Because Dan Marino was like throwing the ball all over the field against defenses when the rules weren't that easy. And so when you go watch it, like as the years went on, the quarterback play took a dive, and all of a sudden now they changed the rules where you have where the level of quarterback play go up because better quarterbacks makes more entertaining football, and the rules are still that. So the whole like winning the trenches. Listen, your offensive line just has to be good enough. And the issue with the Dolphins' offensive line is less about talent. I've said, I said that. It has a lot more to do with guys staying healthy and Greer just acting like I can just turn injuries off like I do in Madden. Like with the injury, he just ignores injury history without a plan. So our tackles getting hurt, not having a plan to replace him is a problem. I'll give him Austin Jackson that was healthy all the way until 23. And then he got hurt again. So yeah,
But he
that
reached
was
for him. He reached for him.
right. No, I get it, but he was healthy as far as not having a backup right tackle. He was healthy. He was the last one healthy last year, got hurt, and then this year gets hurt again.
Impression of Poupart. I live in Montreal. Poupart moved to Miami, which I love because I have a place in Miami. Moved to Miami back in the 80s. I love Poupart, who was on our show a couple months ago. Go watch that show. We had a lot of fun.
Canada?
He's from Montreal. He's born in Laval.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's why by the way, that's how I got him to come do a show with me in the afternoon. And a month ago, we're gonna get him back on. We're gonna get him back on.
That's awesome.
But
I like Elaine.
Yeah, he's great. But him, because he knocks two. He's very nice. On Expos, that's how we built a bond. But I'm born and raised. I was at the last Expos game. I was there in '94.
That's cool.
With the strike season where we got screwed. I probably have gone to in my life. I probably when the Expos were here. So I was born in '82. They left in 2003. I was probably gone to 500 600 Expos games. You could go to an Expo game for $5, like back in the day. Like it was just such a fun time doing it. It was great. So yes, guys, I can't wait to be your 51st day. If they make the dollar at par, I'll gladly join your country. Gladly join your country. Gladly. I'm proud to be an American.
As long as you guys keep Drake.
Exactly. But we'll bring our beer for free. We'll give you free beer. Okay?
All right.
We have good beer here.
Just bring the lumber.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys a question. We're going to talk about all the elements of the defensive line, but I made this comment off the show, Greg, and I mentioned to Brett, but I want to bring it up. Just quickly about the O-line, and then we'll talk about all the needs and everything, and we'll talk about where everything is a bit of a mess for 25 and what we should do. Mm-hmm. I believe if we look back on it now, the Robert Hunt thing where you got a guy in the second round who you developed, if you go look at what Rob Hunt did this year, and what the market is for offensive linemen now with Trey Smith and all that, the $20 million, what you would have given Rob Hunt, would have not been a terrible contract. Do you know how undisciplined as the Miami Dolphins are? I look at this stat. Do you know that Rob Hunt this year had, with the Bryce Young behind him and Andy Dalton, he took 0 holding penalties? 0 holding penalties. I think Liam Eichenberg took about 60 or 70 holding penalties. Like, the point of the matter is if you look at it this year, had they came back this year and you had Austin Jackson at right tackle, Patrick Paul at left tackle, Aaron Brewer, you wanted to have him there at center. He had a decent year at center. Put him there. Rob Hunt would be your most expensive guy because every team has an expensive guy on the line. You get rid of Armstead. He's your $20 million guy. He's your stabilizing force. All you'd have to do is go get in the third round and develop a left tackle and back him up with a veteran or something like that. Then your O-line's not the problem. The problem was that they didn't prepare for that. They didn't hold on to their draft picks on the O-line. The only one who's truly there, who's actually been a benefit right now of the last 5 years of the rebuild, is Austin Jackson. Everyone else you've been trying to interchange with poor talent. So would you look back on it? Do you say that Rob Hunt would have been a good person to keep? Even at that dollar?
If you were going to pay somebody $20 million a year And you wanted to pick between Rob Hunt and Teron Armstead, I'd pick Rob Hunt because he's at least
Well,
younger and he's more healthy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right, but still, it's sort of missing the.
I know what Greg
Miami has spent so much on the O line
Yeah.
in draft collateral and in free agency. It's utterly ridiculous, and it hasn't fixed anything.
Nope.
Okay, all right. People are coming out of the Super Bowl and saying, "Well, Kansas City needs a better offensive line." The offensive line got them to the freaking Super Bowl, so how
Yeah.
bad can it be? All right, they had a bad game.
And then
All
injuries at
right,
left tackle.
and
Oh, weird.
they
It's
had
almost like
injuries at left tackle. Okay,
something we had. Weird.
all right. You know, the year Tampa Bay beat Kansas City in the Super Bowl. All right, because of the bad offensive line, they got to the Super Bowl, but it's still a bad offensive line.
Well,
That Super Bowl
they were
played.
missing their starting center. Like
Well,
Tardif was.
They played four. They had four backups in it at
Yeah,
one
they
point
had
in that
four
game.
They were
backups,
missing
yeah.
their starting center. Okay,
Yeah,
he's a proud
I mean,
Montrealer. Do you know that guy, Laurent Duvernay Tardif? You know what he does now? He's a
yeah,
freaking doctor.
he's a doctor.
He's an
Yeah,
amazing doctor.
yeah.
I got out of there. I
And,
won my Super Bowl. I'm out.
but I mean, we've talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
There's 160 starting offensive linemen. There's not 100 good ones, okay, in the league. Every team's got holes on the offensive line. And by the time you get to the playoffs, most teams are playing backups, which means they're not good anyway. Okay. So you can't use that as a way of saying, okay, if I just build an offensive line, if I build the brick wall, it's a brick wall's not going to last. All right.
Detroit.
And even if, huh?
Detroit. Detroit had everyone talked about their offensive line all year. What caused them to lose that football game? Their quarterback.
Yeah.
And their injuries on the defense. Yes, their injuries. They had so many injuries on the defense. But Jared Goff was awful.
Weird.
Jared Goff's awful.
It's almost like it goes back to quarterback play.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, you know, and
The Buccaneers added a rookie in 2020 and Brady, and their offensive line went from 32nd to the best in the NFL. Was it Brady or the rookie tackle? No, it was Brady.
It was Brady.
it's Brady.
Sorry,
you know, but I keep. What does an offensive line get you? All right,
Time.
it gets you time, but it also
Little.
gets you the ability to just beat the hell out of a bad team.
Mhm.
The problem is when you get into the playoffs, you're not playing bad teams, okay? And you can't just. There is not an offensive line constructed that is going to maul a defense against a good team 3 weeks in a row to get to a Super Bowl. It just doesn't exist, okay? Baltimore got better running the football this year because they signed a running back, not because they improved their offensive line. The Philadelphia didn't improve their offensive line compared to last year. They lost a Hall of Fame center who was still basically in his prime. All right. And the guy they moved to center was a better guard than he was at center this year.
Right.
All right. So, but they got better. Why? Because they got a better running back. When Miami played Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor wasn't on the field. They couldn't run the football. Jonathan Taylor comes back with the same offensive line. They're good at running the football again. Okay. Again, it's all a bunch of crap when they say that it starts and stops in the interior line or it starts and stops in the trenches. That is just simply not true. All right.
Like
The majority of pressures in the NFL are scheme related. They're not individual players winning individual matchups. The majority, that means over 50% of all quarterback pressures are based on scheme.
Yeah.
All right. When you throw a quick passing game, when you're getting rid of the ball in 2.5 to 2.8 seconds, which most of the quarterbacks are anymore, if you got somebody standing in front of you, you don't get to the quarterback in under 3 seconds. So what do you got to do? You got to create basically untouched people coming in.
Yep.
That's what the scheme is doing.
And you got to time it right when they because you block in,
Correct.
which is immediate, So your immediate threat is inside. They're A gap and B gaps, and everybody's doing inside's the first check. And if you time your stunts and twists right, you'll beat that. He'll check like a guard will check to the inside, kick out the tackle, and then a guard or a linebacker or whatever will see that time it come screaming through, and like, oh well, that guard missed it. Well, no, the guard did his job. He checked, he blocked down, went and helped tackle to block out. So that's his job, but they didn't account for the pressure, which who sees the pressure better than anybody, or who can see that pre-snap better than anybody is the quarterback, because all the offensive linemen are down. The quarterback could see it, especially in shotgun. Hey, and that's what Brady and Manning and all the greats are doing. They're calling this and this out. They're saying this is what's happening, and they're calling the protections, and they're shouting it out. Hey, 52's hot, or whatever. However they communicate it, and then the guards know, hey, he's going to be coming in, and I can block that. I can pick that blitz up.
But again, Miami. Brent and I said it last year. Evan, you were part of this as well. Before the draft, if Miami wants to get better, get a better running back.
Yep.
All right. You want to get better on offense, get a better running back. It's really that simple. And all of the HN people are going to come after me for it and things like that. But you know what? He's just not a difference maker when he's getting the ball 15 times a game as in a handoff. All right. Saquon Barkley got the ball 20. He got 30 touches in the Super Bowl. Okay. And basically was a non-factor. All right. The year before, McCaffrey got 30 touches and basically was a non-factor. The game, especially in the playoffs, comes down to quarterback play.
Yep.
Yep.
But if you want a good running back, the one thing about a running back, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. It's very simple. The Miami Dolphins are great with the running backs when it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 5. But you get running backs in when it's when it's short yardage, goal to go, 4th down. The running back is non-existent. So, like you said, you have to be able to have a good running back during the course of the season. But if you want to win the playoffs, it's all about, because you want to know what? Joe Burrow in the playoffs would have been an assassin. He wouldn't have used his running back. Hardly anything. He would have been a star.
No.
And trust me, he had.
By the way, his defense and offensive line carried. Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a second. The year they went to the Super Bowl, what was wrong? Well, their offensive line was one of the worst in the NFL. The worst in the NFL. They got to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. The worst in the NFL. And they got to the Super Bowl.
That's because their quarterback overcame it.
Oh, and they started a player. They started a player on the O line in that Super Bowl that got cut from the Miami Dolphins.
Isaiah Prince, who was
the Miami Dolphins.
Look, I just made this list. So you guys won't be able to see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 picks. Now I haven't gone back to see if they made any trade ups other than Eichenberg, who they did trade up for. So at least 11 picks since 2016 on offensive line. And they traded Tunsil. We got a whole bunch of picks back. They drafted Dieter, and now he's not on the team anymore. Yeah. Isaiah Prince, like you said, couldn't start. Also Jackson, he's right tackle, starting serviceable. We could live with it. Robert Hunt was probably their best offensive lineman they drafted. They had no plan to replace him, couldn't afford him because you don't pay guards big money, but you should have a plan to replace, and that's their problem. They don't have a plan. Solomon Kinley never stayed in shape. Liam Eichenberg traded up over Creed Humphrey for him. Larnell Coleman, 7th round project. Ryan Hayes, 7th round, whatever. Then Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul showed promise last year. I don't have any problems with Patrick Paul. I think maybe he could be a good offensive lineman.
No reps.
But I think he'll be a good tackle, like serviceable. I think his ceiling's and that's all you need. It don't have to be.
You're the Dolphins needing immediate impact from your rookies to have a successful season. And you draft an offensive tackle in the 2nd round, and he's your 4th tackle all year long.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It just, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're wasting picks. If you're going to draft him in the 2nd round, start him. Robert, remember our 2020, we started Kinley, Jackson, and Hunt, and the offensive line was not terrible in 2020. Everybody says, oh, this and that. No, the offensive line was not that bad in 2020. And I thought they did a service. I thought also Jackson looked his best that he did until McDaniel got there in 22. Austin Jackson looked just fine at left tackle. And then the next year he was bad. And then 22, when McDaniel took over, he started looking good at right tackle. But you draft, and the thing is, you draft Tunsil, get all these picks for trading them. I'm cool with that. That's fine. But you never really replaced him with Jackson. And he went through a whole bunch of money at Armstead. And the problem is Armstead's never finished the season ever in his career. And it's like, what are we doing? And to me, it's like the offensive line, Armstead said it. They're fine at offensive line. They have the guys he feels. But it's the mentality and it's the details of why they can't pick up short yardage and why they blow assignments. And that's the problem. That's the culture thing where no one's held accountable, so no one's doing their job. And I get it. He's right. Like mentality-wise, yeah, you have to be self-accountable and you have to be physical and willing to push for it. But he's right where not everybody's doing their job, and then and the guys aren't staying healthy, and then you're shuffling them around. So the offensive line, you'll never have an all-pro offensive line for a long period. Dallas had a great offensive line for a while. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it fell apart. Why? Because he couldn't pay everybody. Injuries happened. And then next thing you know, you're shuffling them around. So you're never going to have an elite offensive line for a very long time. It's just never going to happen. It's just getting the right guys that fit your mold.
Well, no. And the Dallas Cowboys have informed me on my opinion on the offensive line. Again, for people who just catch it up on this, all right? I played college offensive line. I was an offensive starting tackle in college, Division III, but still, all right. I coached offensive line in college and in high school, all right. I'm an O-line guy.
What do you know about offensive line?
All right. I understand this. I grew up thinking that everything started in the trenches, all right. But
because
then the Dallas Cowboys,
30 years ago, it did.
yeah, Dallas Cowboys go 12-4, have the best record in the NFC, and basically it is because of their offensive line. The same offensive line comes back the next year, and Tony Romo gets hurt. They traded their leading rusher because anybody can run behind the offensive line. All right, they traded him to Philadelphia, DeMarco Murray, and Des Bryant gets hurt, so they lose their quarterback, their best running back, and their best wide receiver. All right, in the same year, and they go 5-11. So tell me how much the offensive line freaking matters.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
The offensive line didn't change. They didn't get worse. They actually were better that year, statistically, but they couldn't do anything.
Right.
All right.
But hang on. To prove your point further, let's look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins' offense got better when McDaniel took over, right? It looked like a much better unit. It was more explosive and all that. And what changed between Flores and McDaniel's time? Weapons. Focus on the weapons. Weird how we got Mostert was an upgrade at running back to what we had. And I like Mostert in the role he's in. They upgraded him at running back. And then they got Tyreek Hill, and they already had a good receiver in Waddle, and then you got your true number one in Hill. All of a sudden, the offense is clicking. It's working. Why? Because you improved the weapons. The offensive line really didn't improve at all. And again, I always call the team soft. It's a mentality soft. But if you get those guys to buckle down, the offensive line, again, at the same time, everybody's complaining, well, we still have to replace Eichenberg. It's not that hard to find a good starting guard in the NFL or a starting level guard in the NFL because the level of offensive line play around the league is not that great, like you pointed out, Greg. So you can find a guard that's serviceable, that does the job, that has that killer instinct. You can find them. Isaiah Wynn, unfortunately, he doesn't stay out there. He does a good job at guard. I mean, he's not elite, but it doesn't matter. You don't need elite. I mean, look at the Colts. They had a good offensive line like that too.
You don't need elite. You need serviceable.
Michael Desire said it is hard for Grizz. It's impossible. That's fair. I mean, Robert Jones is better than Eichenberg, who's a UDFA. So whatever. Sorry, Greg. Let me cut you off. That was funny.
No, it's true.
So let's talk about it a little bit. So let's talk about our needs. In theory, I actually looked at the whole roster. We have more needs outside of quarterback, which we'll talk about. We have more needs on the defense than we do on the offense. If you look at it, we are more depleted on the defense than we are on the offense. The offense is not that far off. So, because if you look at the offense, Tua is going to be back next year.
Right.
God help us. Backup quarterback, we'll talk about who you guys might like. At the guard position, on the offensive line, I believe that Teron Armstead should not be back. The guy's acting
Ryan
like he should
Hayes.
be back, but all you're doing is you're holding back Patrick Paul another year. You can't. Patrick Paul is not a guard. You know you have Aaron Brewer.
No.
You're going to have to either go find two guards, whether it's mid-level in the draft. Do not trade up for anybody, please. You have Austin Jackson. You need to remove yourself of Durham Smythe once and for all. You have Jonnu Smith. Wide receivers, I'm not concerned about wide receiver. If Tyreek Hill is going to have to be back, Waddle's back, Taj Washington will be off injury. You have Malik Washington.
Malik Washington did a good job.
Yeah, so they're going to be fine.
returner.
I think they're fine there. So in the end, it's really about getting your two guards, getting rid of Armstead, getting a good running back, maybe a power back in the draft if you could see one in there, or go get someone who's reasonable, that's actually a capable running back. So Achane could be sort of that 3 wide receiver, because I don't want him as our starting wide receiver. Jalen Wright's not ready yet. So it's really all about, for me, a good running back, a backup quarterback, and 2 guards. The rest I can live with. On the defensive side of the ball, you have to remove yourself. You have no one next to Sealer. You don't have a nose tackle. On the edge, they can't afford Chubb. They're going to have to get rid of him. I don't trust Phillips yet. You're going to have to go get an edge rusher to help out with Chop. Linebackers, oh my God, outside of Brooks, you have nobody. On the secondary, Fuller, they might cut. They might bring him back. You still have Storm Duck, Cam Smith, whatever. But you have the key is the 2 starting safety. You have to get 2 starting safeties, because you're not going to give Javon Holland $19.5 million on the franchise tag, and you're not going to guarantee him his money. So you're going to kick rocks and get rid of him. So Weaver's going to have the opportunity to rebuild his defense. But overall, go through the different positions that I just outlined and tell me what can Greer and McDaniel do? What should they do in the fact that they are in a lame duck year where they need to go for it because their jobs matter, so they have to win a playoff game and do something? Can they do that by using their draft picks, or are they going to chance it and do something stupid again by going to get a Myles Garrett, or be stupid enough to get a Max Crosby, give up a first-round pick, do stupid like that? But go over the roster, take your time, and just tell me, what do we need to do so we can apologize for the fact that we think it's all about 2026. And by the way, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we've yet to announce, we haven't had a show since, but congratulations, Brett, on Ohio State destroying Notre Dame. I'm sorry, Greg.
So you could tell that Chip Kelly took over play calling and took over the offense, because all of a sudden their offense was like back to the way it was, and it was like Ryan Day. Like, it wasn't Ryan Day.
They won in spite of Ryan Day.
Yeah. Well, like Ryan Day, hey, I'll give him credit, because
Hayes was 7.
He finally got lost. He finally looked at Michigan like, I can't beat them at their own game. Like, well, no duh. Like, you're not going to beat them in a power run game. You can outscore them and use your athletes. You have a bunch of freaking nature on the outside. Use it. But he finally just decided, oh, you know what? I need to change what I'm doing and stick to what Ohio State does. And it worked. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with that game.
Honestly, Marcus Freeman's still a hell of a coach. You guys will get back.
Oh, yeah. Marcus
it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
No, it was just, to me, it was just 2 different teams at 2 different level or 2 different points.
Like Notre Dame, I think they have a good chance next year. I think they're a year behind.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the roster and see what do you guys forecast? Like, what could you see based on with the roster, the way it's built now? If you guys were in charge, head coach and GM, build me the roster and how you would build this roster the way it should be, even in cap hell, to make it a positive season next year. How would you go about it?
There's 2 things here. All right. What I think they should do and what I believe they will do. Okay.
Talk about both.
I'll say it this way.
Talk about both.
All right. I'm a firm believer that you draft one side of the ball and you fill in with free agency on the other side. Okay. I think this draft should be defensive heavy. I think that they should have 3 relatively high picks just in the secondary, in my opinion. They got safeties to fill. They got cornerbacks they need to upgrade. I would start there. Again, it starts at the back and moves its way forward, right?
Yeah.
So I'm of the opinion they need defensive back help in the worst way. Now, that's what I would do. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to draft a tight end out of Penn State.
Good Lord.
All right,
Greg just
and
wants us to take Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, by the way.
but
I'd be all about it, to be honest.
but if they want to improve the offense, the easiest and that's McDaniel saving his job. He needs to get a good tight end outside of Johnny Smith. Johnny Smith is not. Johnny Smith is a large slot receiver in a way. He's not a blocking inline tight end. They need to find a tight end, and they, if they go back to Achane as the primary running back, I think there's going to be some issues. But I see them going offense early and often. It wouldn't surprise me if they went tight end and like a guard in the second round. And if that's the case, I just see this defense struggling big time next year. In a lot of ways, the defense showed better statistically than what they were in the 2024. They played a really soft schedule, and I think that was reflective of it. And McDaniel's dumb decision to basically run a conservative offense to limit the number of possessions basically helped the defense as well. But
Yeah.
if they don't draft at least a safety, a cornerback, even probably two cornerbacks in the first 4 rounds, they've screwed up, in my opinion. They need to improve that secondary.
So if you hear the name if they don't trade back and you hear the name Malachi Starks at 12, you're going to be happy?
Yes.
Would you keep that pick or would you trade back and collect? If you could get trade that first and you get a late first and a second, would you do it or would you take the best defensive player you can get in the secondary at 12?
I'm of the opinion to take the best defensive player. At 12, I don't trade back at 12. If I'm in the 18 to 20 range, I might trade back, but I think you need to get the best defensive player on the board.
I'm a little different. So, and not that I disagree with getting fixing the secondary and getting a good safety, all that stuff. Not anything to do with that. But I don't think we need to necessarily go reach for. I don't want to say reach for defense, but I think we need to get the best impact that we can out of this draft. I think we need guys that can start and play right away. I think I do agree with you. But in this draft, I mentioned Xavier Watts, but him and Malachi Starks could be there at 13. Watts has really, to me, jumped out a little bit more, but in my opinion, like that would be a good position to take. And I'm not usually high on safety that early, but those guys are guys that go after the ball and take the ball away. But I'm all about getting a corner in the second round or the first round. I'm all about jumping up and getting a pass rusher in the first round if they're good enough. You know what I mean? Like if they're, I don't want to reach for a guy like taking Austin Jackson at 19. I don't want to do that again. Like I don't want to reach for a guy at that high. I want to get a position that it's good value, and a trade down would be fine. They better get a good player. And everybody's talking about trade down, but then they're bitching that it's hard to get a good player at the bottom of a first round. Well, it's not if you know how to draft. But I think I would go. They do need to fix the secondary. That should be one of the priorities this offseason. Depth on the interior defensive line and defensive line. Sealer's a beast, but you got no one left.
No. Noah Farrell. We have Farrell.
No, but like the linebackers, honestly, I think the linebackers played well. I would still like to add another linebacker in free agency. There is a couple linebackers I would like in this draft. I have to sit down and look at it before I say, but the position that I don't think we need to focus on a position. I think we need to focus on the guys who make the most immediate impact and change.
Josh Sweat's a free agent. Josh Sweat's a free agent.
Yeah, I think Philly might hang on to him because he's really
Khalil Mack is. There's a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a lot of free agents on defense. But you know how many tight ends are on? Like, go honestly, just between the top free agents for tight end, just FYI, are just looking here because you mentioned tight end. You have Juwan Johnson, Zach Ertz, Conklin. We're not Gesicki. I don't consider a tight end. Like there's Austin Hooper. Like there's Hayden Hurst. Like there's different guys you can go get. Herb Smith, who played in Baltimore. Like there's good options to go get a blocking tight end.
I think. Look, if you're going to run the H-hand, you got to run outside zone. And if you don't have a good blocking tight end, you're not running outside zone.
Yeah.
So you build the team around what you want to do. Even though I don't necessarily agree that H-hand should be your primary back, but you're not going to run him in between the tackles.
Well, their offense is outside zone anyway. A lot of what they want to run.
Correct.
So
Kareem Hunt's available. Aaron Jones is available. Najee Harris is available.
I'm about to say Najee Harris. It's going to be Najee Harris because they're going to be like, "Oh, Tua, we'll get you your best friend. That'll help you in the locker room. That'll help you support."
I'd go get J.K. Dobbins again. I wanted J.K. Dobbins last year, or go get Nick Chubb.
As an Ohio State fan, I would stay away from J.K. Dobbins just because of the injuries. I don't think he's J.K.
Well, Nick Chubb too.
Yeah, I would take Nick Chubb. I know the injuries, but I think the risk versus reward for him is better than what you would get with Dobbins, in my opinion. Yeah. So, and Baltimore, who's a good running team, a good offensive line, they moved on from him, which is kind of weird. I thought when you have a good offensive line, it's all that matters.
Yeah. But
watch the Dolphins sign, Nick Chubb, and to be a running back, and he basically turns into Jeff Wilson.
Yeah,
he's like a fourth down back, or your fourth on your roster back, and he plays like 3 snaps a game.
He should be your starter. But by the way, anyways, what was it going to? I lost my train of thought there for a minute.
While you're thinking of that, real quick, for all of you to say we have to get offensive line in the first, we have to.
No.
Miami might. They might do it, but I don't think they have to.
They don't have to.
So I've said it. We were talking about the Eagles drafted one offensive lineman in the first round, 2013. That was just terrible draft anyway. That was just terrible talent wise, and not very many of those guys are still in the league or good. For that first round, so like.
I'm not drafting a starting guard in the first round.
No. And the thing is, unless you find a good offensive tackle that you feel like, hey, he can replace Armstead right now and step in, and you can move Austin Jackson to guard and put Paul at right tackle, fine. But he better be good. But I'm not going after offensive lineman in the first round. And if they do, which they probably, I really think that's what they're going to do. I really think Greer's going to go that route.
But it's not their need. But
then it just shows that they have no clue.
They're lost. If they take an offensive lineman, honestly, they take the best edge rusher. Honestly, what I was going to say, you lock Mike McDaniel, you lock Chris Greer in a room, you lock them in the closet, and you give the draft book to Anthony Weaver. Like, honestly, just let Anthony Weaver draft because he needs the players more than McDaniel does. McDaniel has the players he needs to be successful. And like Greg is saying, you can go, you worry about March, Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. Let Weaver worry about April. Give him the chance to build his defense properly. You didn't give him a defense last year. You had to allow him to go get a 38-year-old near the end of your training camp. Like, let him build his team. Let him build this team.
I'll tell you what, looking at this right now, I didn't realize it. Charles Omenihu and Chase Young are both free agents.
Yeah.
BJ Hill, I'd go after Chase Young or Charles Omenihu.
Yeah.
I know people are going to look at, Charles Omenihu made that mistake. He's actually had a pretty good career. Nothing special. I'm not saying that, but a pretty good player, though. Be better than we have now. So, yeah, I'm just looking at some of the guys available, but, there's
a lot of free agents available. I don't want to hear what anybody says.
But they don't have any money, so they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, but they're going to cut. Like, Chubb's not back. Armstead's not going to be back unless Armstead takes a major pay cut. They're going to get Holland off the boat. Holland won't be there. They might cut Fuller. There's way. Mostert will be gone. They'll find ways to make the money because you can void the years, right? Like if they do all these things, they'll do void years because obviously they want to try and win next year, so they'll do void years. They're just kicking it down the road.
But they'll also take guys like that are older too. I almost guarantee.
We can't. Oh, that's our problem. We can't. We had the oldest roster in the NFL last year, and look what happened. We broke down.
That's what he does.
That's Chris Greer, though. So Chris Greer identifies the holes in the roster after the season. He signs middling free agents to fill those holes. Then he uses the draft by filling the holes in free agents.
Projects.
Yeah.
Well, he can then draft best available, right? And most of those guys are projects that can't beat out the middling veterans,
Yep.
and you don't really get good.
No.
All right, you don't change. All right, we talked about it. I said it earlier. All right, the Dolphins hardly ever get any votes for Rookie of the Year. Why? Because he drafts projects that can't beat out middling veterans
Yeah, like
that he
fine.
filled the holes with.
Like Malik Washington was a good pick in the end, but you took a chance and you took some wide receivers there that were successful in college. And you want to know what? I'd only really draft. I'd go after one major safety. Go get another free agent. You want to know what? You drafted Patrick McMorris. The guy looks like a capable guy. See what he can do next year in OTAs. Bring in some competition, but you drafted the guy. Try and develop him.
Yeah.
Try and develop him. Because like I always said, everyone blamed and ripped Vic Fangio for not playing Cam Smith. Do you know that in his secondary, from the 2024 draft, Quenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean were two of his four starting secondary players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two
And I'll tell you what,
rookies.
right now, Willie Gay and Nick Bolton are free agents.
Yeah.
At linebacker, you grab one of those guys. I don't know if linebacker doesn't seem like a big priority. You grab one of those guys and stick him in the middle with Brooks, and all of a sudden your linebacker and your
We
coverage
need
for the
dogs.
linebacker point got so much better. And that would or Greenlaw, like one of those good linebackers that are there's free agents that could boost the defense, which is where you have most of the holes.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with that.
So one of the things that cracks me up, okay, when I hear about how you build these teams and stuff like that, and how you're supposed to, build in the trenches and things like, all of this other, happy crap, right? Do you realize that the last three Super Bowl winners, and I realize that Kansas City has won two of those three, but Kansas City, 2 or 3 years ago, last year, and then Philadelphia this year. What did all three of their defenses have in common?
Good
They
secondary.
played a crap ton of rookie and second year DBs, all right, that weren't drafted necessarily in the first round either.
Yeah,
Okay,
true.
and they had incredible impact on games.
Well,
All right, you could change your secondary and therefore change your entire defense in a draft if you do it well. We've seen it, like I said, the last three Super Bowl winners did it really well.
Well, our defense was at its best when we had a good secondary. Under Flores, we had a good secondary.
If you look back,
it fell apart.
When the Patriots won those Super Bowls, they all talk about the players like Teddy Bruschi and Vince Wilfork and all that. It was always about the secondary and how those guys played in the secondary. And like you telling me, wait, do you know if right now, if you ask people right now, people talk about Drake May and all this, the best player on the New England Patriots day one for Mike Vrabel is Christian Gonzalez. No Christian Gonzalez, no bueno. Christian Gonzalez, every time he went, every time the Dolphins went to face him, he gave you guys fits. Who's the best defensive player on the Denver Broncos? The defensive player of the year, Patrick Surtain the second.
Surtain.
I call it
Surtain. He's going to get mad.
Surtain. Canadian, eh? Ain, not Ain. It's like my knee, not Maney. My knee. See?
Yeah, my knee.
No, but it's true. When Xavier Howard was on top of it. By the way, we played well when Byron Jones and Xavier Howard were there together healthy. We played well together. We played well together.
And Xavier Howard is the only elite player, the only really good player that Greer drafted. That's it.
How good was Rashard Jones? When we had Rashard Jones back in the day, how good he was? Mm-hmm. People forget how undervalued he was as a secondary player.
Yes. And again, if your mentality is on defense to build from the back forward, like the good, like the Super Bowl winning teams do, that should inform your draft because Miami's secondary could use 4 new players.
Yeah. Well, to add to that point, if you look at the good teams when they drafted in the first round, majority of the time, like the Chiefs drafted, I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I know his whole situation that he had was bad, and personally, he had some issues happen to him that he dealt with. But like that was the one pick that they usually wouldn't take a guy in the first round like that in the running back. But it's at the bottom of the first, so you still got to get those right. But it's not often that they miss. But they take secondary early, they take pass rush early, they take receivers early. So the thing is, premium positions like you always preach, Greg, like receiver, linebacker, or edge rusher or pass rush, and you don't take defensive line early, interior defensive line early. You don't take safety early. You don't take tight end early or running back early unless they affect the football. So you take a running back early if they're like a dominant, like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, or a safety like it's a ball hawk, and then you don't take interior defensive lineman early unless like Aaron Donald or Justin Simmons, guys that get after the quarterback, like guys like that, like Jalen Carter, again, another guy gets after the quarterback, and it took him early. Jordan Davis, he can get after, he affects the football. So that's why I'd also like the kid from Michigan to draft for us at 13, because like Vita Vea, I wanted him in 18 because he resets the offensive line and he pushes offensive lineman into the quarterback's face, and that's a big help with rushing the quarterback and makes it easy on the edge rushers. So like the premium position should be the focus. Now Miami started focusing on premium positions, but they've missed on those positions. They've taken the wrong players. Noah Igbenogany. I mean, technically, they took premium positions in the first round. They took Tua, was a wrong quarterback.
Speaking
took
of
Austin
Noah,
Jackson, wrong offensive lineman. They took, or I don't even say wrong, probably wrong position. Noah Igbenogany at corner, wrong player. Like they always take the wrong. They took Waddle, and they could have just moved up 2 spots or traded a lot less and got Smith, or stayed up put and got Jamar Chase. So like they don't. I don't know what happens, but they don't focus on the right players either, even when they focus on the right position.
But Brett, you didn't buy one of the starting cornerbacks of the Washington Commanders jersey. You don't live that far. Do you know who one of the starting quarterbacks of the Washington Commanders was this year?
Yeah, I know he was a nickel. I know Noah Igbenogany was a nickel.
Isn't that amazing?
But
by the way, why was Washington good this year? By the way, guys. Why do people? By the way, you know why people believe that Washington's going to be good for a lot of years?
Their offensive line. Oh,
I wonder why. Quarterback play.
Well, yeah. How many more spots farther down the list of quarterbacks did Tua fall this year? Because there's a lot of good rookie quarterbacks
right now.
And like I said, I would trade it up for Bo Nix. I got killed for that. I got killed for saying I would love Daniels. People saying that like, oh, you can't trade up for him,
Tua
whatever.
Can
That's
resurrect
fair.
himself.
Bo Nix was right there.
But Tua can resurrect himself if he lets his. He could be what Jared Goff was last year, or if he does what he did in 2023 with multi injuries. If he gives the ball to his weapons, they'll win. Why did they suck this year? Because Tyreek never got the ball. Tyreek is right. Whenever I want to give credit to Tyreek Hill, whether he off the field, his insanity, his bipolarness, but in the end,
you need a couple of those guys.
Yeah, we need guys like him. He wants to win. Like the fact that he wants to say, "I'm out," I'd be out too. Like what kind of nonsense is this?
He's running gassers all game and not getting the ball. Yeah,
he never got the ball. Brandon Routzen never got the ball. I put that a little bit on McDaniel, but like, yes, the way the play, but they stopped throwing the ball to him.
But he's open.
By the way, except for the game, which I don't even consider a deep shot. A deep shot in that first game where he got the 80 yards, where he put the hands behind his waist, which wasn't even a deep shot. It was the outside the numbers. Knights throw by Tua, great. Mm-hmm. They never threw the ball deep once the entire season. There was not one bomb the entire season. Not one.
I'm hoping that McDaniel watched the end of the Super Bowl and they just saw, okay,
Xavier Worthy running.
Send your fast guy. Yeah, send your fast guys down the field and throw them the football.
Yeah.
Philadelphia did it. Kansas City did it. And it's like, okay, I got 2 fast guys. I got 3 fast guys. No, no, yeah. Don't make this difficult. I hope that's what they
Yeah.
saw.
Let me ask you guys about the offensive side of the ball. So right now, they've gone all crazy where we don't know what the story with Darrell Bevell is going to be. He lost the opportunity with the Raiders. Who knows? But yeah, Mike McDaniel doesn't want to give up play calling. Frank Smith, we don't know what he does every day. Now Darrell Bevell sits next to Tua and holds his hand. And now they hire Bobby Slowick. So a senior passing game coordinator. What would you do from the offensive side of the ball, from the court, not the quarterback position? We'll get to that in a minute. Why do they have four guys almost who's supposed to be running the offense? Like, what the heck is going on that offensive side of the ball? What is Mike McDaniel trying to accomplish where he wants to lead it, but he has three guys behind him? Two have actually been offensive coordinators. All three of them have been offensive coordinators longer than he has. Like, individually, they've all been offensive coordinators for a longer period than he ever has been. So what do you do on the offensive side of the ball with that much experience, but none of them, I don't know what any of them are going to do. I think they just like they're poster boys. They don't do anything because Mike McDaniel is controlling everything. So what's the point? Why'd they hire Bobby Slowick?
Trying to give
I
a different
think-
perspective, I think.
Is he going to listen?
Yeah.
He's not going to listen.
I don't know.
Maybe
Like
maybe he will. And look, the last 20, like I said, 24, 27 games or whatever it is, the offense has gotten stale.
Mhm.
All right. Part of what the issue has been is the defenses have basically found a way to contain the Miami Dolphin offense, and McDaniel doesn't have an answer for it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's trying to find answers, and he's bringing in other guys who have different looks and different philosophies as to what those answers are going to be.
Who's play
And
calling next year, Brett? If you were with this coaching staff, who has the play call sheet? Is it McDaniel? Is it Slowick? Is it Bevel? Or is it Smith?
Well, a lot of no, it's not Smith. A lot of people are going to sit there
Not
and
Smith,
say
no.
like everybody kept saying, "Oh, just give Darrell Bevell the play calling." I don't think you want that. You really don't want that. It's going to be North Turner all over again. You don't want that. They're going
They
to run
did
the
win a
ball,
Super Bowl.
run
They
the
did win a
ball,
Super
run the
Bowl.
ball. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Like, I'm sorry, North Turner is a head coach offense. That's what I should say. It's going to be heavy run, and not that Darrell Bevell's a bad play caller at all, but his job when he was calling plays on it was to basically complement the defense, right? They like he
Legion of
called.
Boom.
I don't really see that as like an elite thing, but again, is it coaching or players? To me, it's more of a player than coaching thing. But I would say Slowick or McDaniel should be the one calling the plays.
If McDaniel wants to figure this out, he's got to give the play calling to somebody else, in my opinion, because he is so stuck in his ways. All right. You know, again, I'm going to go back to the Super Bowl, and things like that. There was a play where Jalen Hurts is in the shotgun. He recognizes the the coverage, and he sees Brown's got one-on-one coverage. He just basically does a hand signal to him and says, "Run this route." Regardless of what the play call is, I'm throwing a back shoulder fade to you. Okay? Tom Brady pointed it out on the actual
By the way,
game call.
Tom Brady was excellent in that game. He was not good during the year. He dissected that game. He was actually pretty good during that game. He
I
wasn't shy either about his.
yeah, he was better.
He was better.
He for first year guy, he did all right. But again, have that ability within your offense. If Tua truly can see the defense now, if they truly want to run less motion and less shifts to give him the ability to make the right play call at the line of scrimmage, then let him make it. I just don't think that part is in McDaniel's makeup. I really don't. I just don't. He sees running the offense a certain way. He's going to run it that way no matter what. So I would love to see Slowick get it, but I have no.
Well,
I think they need
hold
to get rid of somebody.
I don't.
I think they have to get rid of either Frank
What?
Smith or Darrell Bevell. They can't have. There's too many chefs in the kitchen.
Well, hang on. No, there's not. Slowick is actually defensive back pass game specialist. So if you go back to his history when he was with the Redskins, that's what they were called back then. with that
He's
staff,
senior passing game coordinator. He's senior passing game.
According to the Miami Dolphins web or page.
Are you confusing him with Ryan?
No. Oh, maybe. Hold on.
Ryan Slowick's on the defense.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
They're brothers. Bobby is the senior
they're
passing
brothers.
coordinator.
Bobby,
Ryan's on the defense.
Wait a minute. Oh, yep. Because Bobby was a defensive specialist.
He's a former. He got screwed over in Houston because you want to know what when you lose Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, you're not going to win much.
They were worried about their offense before that, like getting stale and other issues.
But he was good.
No,
in the first
so
year.
Bobby Slowick. Yeah, no, he is senior. That's my bad.
Yeah, Ryan Slowick's on the other side.
But he started as a defensive assistant in Washington and San Fran. He didn't move the offense until 2019.
Yeah.
So he didn't become he was a off pass game coordinator for the 49ers in 22. He only called plays in 23 and 24.
Yeah.
So these guys are not.
They're young. He's only 37.
Yeah. So these guys are not like.
But we need a different perspective. Like by the way, I want to make it very clear to everybody because DSG and all that. I'm the hardest guy on McDaniel. I've always said it on every show. I want him to prove me wrong. But the problem is until he does, the same way until Greer proves you wrong, I'm going to go with what I see. And for me, I want him to become a good head coach. But when your head is in the sand and you can't clock manage, you can't game manage, you're undisciplined on the sideline, the players are throwing off their helmets, they're showing up late for meetings, no one's taking you seriously. Become a head coach. You want the play calling back? Go for it in a couple of years when you've solidified yourself as a head coach. But until you've done that, prove you're in a lame duck here. Also, his safest bet, you know what it is when you're at the blackjack table or you're at the poker table, you don't if you're going all in and you don't go all in when you're the most desperate. And that's what he's going to do. If he's smart, he plays his chips a little to his vest, let somebody else, because it's also the smart thing for him to do, because if he wants to save his job, if he takes the play calling and they screw up, he's to blame.
Well,
but if he gives it up and they screw up at the end, he could blame them. He could pull the Greer. See,
I don't see McDaniel doing that because a lot of the guys he has, a lot of coaches don't want to burn bridges with staff members. So they're not going to I see McDaniel saying, you know what, I'm this far in, if it's going to go down, might as well go down with me and let it follow me and not screw Slowick's career getting hired as offensive coordinator. Here's the thing, though, because we saw that with Brian Daboll, who I thought did a fantastic job with the Dolphins in 2011, but it fell apart. And then I think Daboll took a couple of years before he moved to offensive coordinator again. Yeah. But Slowick,
he went to Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was for a couple of years after that, right? But it took a while for he could call plays before he was a play caller again. But like when you talk about like Slowick, he can come in now. That was McDaniel said it before he hired him. That we're right now. I give us the best chance, pretty much. If someone else gave us a better chance, I would do it. Right now, that's me. But now they hired Slowick. Does that change? He's right. He's a better play caller than Frank Smith, and I don't think McDaniel's issue is play calling. I think his issue is he doesn't know how to manage the game and call plays. And so he doesn't know how to do all the other stuff. That's why he's so bad with challenges. That's why he's so bad with clock management. And our associate head coach and assistant head coaches can only do so much for him in that sense. So I don't know that he has the right guys as his assistant head coaches.
Well, John Embry's not an assistant head coach. But I agree with your point. Is that because he's not good at the other aspects of it, he has tunnel vision to his play call sheet. He doesn't have a feel for the game. He's not the same way. What did Greg say at the beginning of the show? It's not about the offensive and defensive line. It's about the secondary reading the play and reading the quarterback's eyes and being able to judge what the guy's about to do. When Mike McDaniel's face is in the play call sheet, and just telling Tua what to do, he doesn't have a feel for the game on what's happening and a pulse for the game. He's relying on his assistants to do it, and that doesn't work. So he has to do something. Like you have to change something up in that particular thing. Because I honestly say I like the person. I like his personality. The problem is that because he's so goddamn stubborn about the fact that he thinks he knows better about the play, about being able to call a game, but he may be able to play design, but he doesn't know when to call the right play at the right time. There's a reason why for the last 3 years he's had the worst short game ever. Why is it when Tyreek Hill was in Kansas City that every time it was fourth down, you knew the ball was going to him? Every time it worked. Why doesn't it work for Mike McDaniel? Because he throws these slow slant patterns, because Tua doesn't have the release that Patrick Mahomes has, but he doesn't plan it properly. You could find a way to use it for Tyreek Hill. Go freaking Wildcat for all I care. But he doesn't do it because he's so tunnel vision to what he wants. He wants to make Tua happy, and he wants to make himself the smartest guy in the room.
Well, I think I actually think he's more selfless than that. I don't think he really cares about being the smartest guy in the room. But I think he does care. Like, oh, I got to make Tua look good because that's going to be my like saving grace with in the NFL kind of thing. And that's where I think guys always screw themselves up when they always think they got the secret sauce for a quarterback, and it's just like, no. And I think his biggest issue is he can't handle all of it. It's a lot for anybody.
Yeah.
And also think they had it in New England. Oh, man, I forgot his name now. Our offensive coordinator, 19, he was the red zone.
Chad O'Shea.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Chad O'Shea was
I'm here for your knowledge. I remember all these things.
He was a red zone play caller. And McDaniel could probably benefit by saying, hey, you know what, slow it. I'm going to have you call plays for these situations, or I'm going to call the plays for these situations. This is where I feel like I'm good. And then it could be where it's like, hey, we got a situation. I know what to do here. This is what I want you to run, or I'm going to call this or whatever. But like have
short down yardage.
Yeah, like have them take over. And like I think he needs to change who his assistant head coach is. Or because right
John
now
Embry's awful.
Yeah.
Look at our tight end play. Look at our tight end blocking.
Well, it's true. Stewsville's been a good associate coach for a long time. He's a consistent coach. I think they gave him that title to give him more money to keep him there because he's a good coach. But like I think they need to have somebody else take over from him, or from Embry. But I don't know. I think the game management is just lost with him. Yeah. And I think he's going to have to learn
the number of penalties they take.
I think he'll be fine as a play caller, as an offensive coordinator. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine, like as a head coach calling plays again, but it won't be in Miami.
Yeah. Well, last game I was at, you know what I spent most of my time doing? Every time there was a running back who ran outside zone, who got more than got space and was able to run, I didn't even look at the running back. I was looking behind him to see, waiting for the ref to pick up the throw, to take the flag out of his belt, because that's what happens every time. Mostert last year got a play where he got 10, 15 yards, holding.
Yeah, and the discipline issues, I've always said that the discipline issues are him, the clock management's him, whether it's because Tua is dense and doesn't get the plays in, it needs to be repeated, or he has to coach him through the reads, which I think is part of it. It's whatever it is, it needs to be fixed. And the stubbornness to make it work with Tua is biting them in the ass bad. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Right. So I got to wait for the entire league to get the plays in quicker.
Have the quarterback call the play?
No. Give everybody a headset in their helmet. And when the head coach or the offensive coordinator calls a play, everybody hears it. The quarterback doesn't have to repeat it.
Yeah. You're right.
Well, that's where, like, I just said this, that, all these coaches call plays, and people are saying, well, McDaniel called plays, it's the problem. I was like, listen, all these coaches, they're acting like no coach should call plays. I'm like, listen, Sean Payton's done it for years, Andy Reid's done it for years, all these coaches done it for years. It's not head coaches calling plays. Right. Now, I'm not saying that means he needs to. I'm just saying, like, it's not a problem with the head coach calling plays. That's not a problem. That's not how that works.
No.
McDaniel, it's been a problem for him, but I still don't believe that he forgot how offenses work and forgot how to call plays. I still think it's a talent issue overall, and I think he's trying to figure out, well, I can only scheme so much.
But
somebody's got to do the damn job.
But how do you develop talent when something doesn't work? You try something else and experiment. You don't stay with the same thing that doesn't work.
Right, but
Is it-
like we're so limited on offense because our tight ends are god awful as receivers, and that doesn't count Johnny Smith. But Johnny Smith's not in line. We have no threat in line. So
Oh, but why did we say what was our famous line, Greg? Every game, if Waddle and Hill don't get X number of touches, we're gonna
Yeah.
lose.
Yeah.
And every time they didn't get touches, we lost.
Yep.
Every time they got touches, we won. It was as
And
simple as that.
I put it out there that we were like 1-5 when we led the team in every game that we had more rushing yards than the opponent. 1-5.
Okay. Let me ask you guys a very serious question. Don't joke around about it. I'm actually asking this seriously. Who of all the free agent quarterbacks, I can list them for you. If Tua's not there, who in all reality, I don't care about scheme nonsense. Who is your selection to be the backup next year?
Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm just kidding. It was a joke.
Do you want me to list them? I can list them.
Does it-
Darnold, forget about it. Rodgers, forget about it. Wilson, Fields, Flacco, Garoppolo, Wilson, Dalton, Mariota, Locke, Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, Josh Dobbs, Mason Rudolph, Jameis Winston. I'll stop at that because everyone else stinks.
Winston. I'm just kidding. I don't even. It's a backup quarterback.
No, I'm just saying, which guy
So-
do you think for Tua as a whole, for the room, for like no Mike White? I'm just saying a guy who's a veteran who basically when he goes in or when even for Tua to coach him up, who is the most because it's the number one. It's the one thing that stands out. When Tua got injured, they had no plan. The same way with the offensive line, they had no plan. Who's your backup?
My first choice would be Marcus Mariota.
Honestly, I was going to say Josh Dobbs,
Okay.
but because Dobbs has done a
Don't
good
say
job.
scheme fit. Please do not
But-
use the scheme.
No.
fit.
I think every time Dobbs has had to go in, he's been serviceable. But I would honestly consider keeping Huntley too.
Huntley will be 3. He'll be back. He'll be 3.
But like, yeah, see, I see the Jimmy Garoppolo a lot, but I mean, that's
He's
pretty much
injury prone.
well, that's just 2.0.
Exactly.
Well, if you look at their career win-loss record and you look at the win-loss without them, the records are identical. Tua's a lot like Matt Schwab, Jimmy G, and all those guys.
Yeah.
And I saw a parallel that I loved. It was Carson Wentz injury history and Tua, so that was kind of funny for me.
But the bigger point to that is McDaniel needs to have a plan for the backup quarterback when he gets in. It can't be run the same offense.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
It
he
can't
did
be the
that, but
Skylar
then,
Thompson thing.
Yeah.
All right. He needs to have an alternative game plan for when he's out because Tua's going to get out again.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he played more than 13 games next year.
And I just want to talk about the cap.
And he got hurt running the football twice. It had nothing to do with him getting hit in the pocket. Nothing. He got hurt.
Like, I really think there needs to be an intervention with Dan Marino. And Dan Marino has to explain to him, why was I a successful quarterback? I didn't run the football because I know, because Tua has to remember, and I've said this many times on shows, Patrick Mahomes is a football player. Josh Allen is a football player. Lamar Jackson is a football player. Jalen Hurts is a football player. Jaden Daniels is a football player. Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Tom Brady, they were not football players. Drew Brees weren't football players. They were passers. They were guys who stood in the pocket, distributed the football because they were smart and intelligent people. Football players are athletes who move around, who can jump, who can tack, who could like every time Patrick Mahomes ran, he could take that hit. Brady was never doing that. Drew Brees never did that. Joe Montana never did that. Dan Marino never did that. Tua thinks he can do it.
Well,
that's the problem.
He's had that problem since college because every injury he's had,
it's because he thinks
except for the rib and one ankle, he was trying to run.
Yeah.
He tried to run in South Carolina, and the defenders grabbed. It was as soon as he planted, and with that hip, he tried to outrun somebody, hurt his ankle. He tried to every time he's ran, and people have said it. He thinks he's a better athlete than he is. And listen, he's a decent enough athlete to move around and maneuver and get yardage. That's fine, but he's not a runner and to take contact.
Oh, for sure not. For sure not.
We're at that 2 hour mark.
Yeah, we're almost at the 2 hour mark, guys. We really appreciate everyone watching. We're going to be back on a regular basis as much as Greg and Brett are available because we're going to be leading into free agency. So, the next couple of weeks, once free agency hits, we'll have a lot more to talk about. Overall, guys, what do you when what do you expect the first week of free agency? Do you see the Dolphins making a splash? Like, if you lead up to it, like in your gut, do you see them doing what they do every year and trying to make that first big splash?
You
Yep,
know,
absolutely. Especially this year, they are going to have to go. They're going all in, Evan.
If you
They're,
had to
they're
pick a
you know
player that you
you
would accept, that you're willing to accept, and that would put a smile on your face, is there a player
well.
out there by trade
So
or free agency?
I am hoping it's a free
Right.
agent signing. I do not want to trade. I don't want to trade draft picks. They need
no.
the draft picks as well.
The
In
2026 GM
in
needs
for
draft picks.
for Greer and McDaniel to save their job, they got to hit not only free agency, they got to hit big in the draft.
I think a trade's happening.
They got to get cheap production.
Well, so I see it two ways because of what Greg said, it's cheap production. I
If
can
that
see
makes
them
sense. And
doing
I don't know
nothing.
if you guys can still hear me or not.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
There we go. All
So,
right. I thought everybody froze,
No.
um, but yeah, it has to. They got to get cheap production. They got to get. They're going to be. They got. They're at such a talent deficit
mhm,
that they have to hit players in free agency and in the draft to
yeah.
make up for that talent deficit. And I still don't see them getting much better than like the fifth seed. And that's if everything goes perfectly. All right. And because they just have too big a hole to make up.
And they're going to have to spend money. They're going to have to spend more money to get people there. But the thing is, I can also see them sitting pat the first day, first couple of days, and wait until that first wave of free agency goes. And then, they get, the guys who are, again, older and cheaper and more affordable. But I think Greer is going to be desperate. I kept saying this, and I'm going to stick with it. This reminds me of Jeff Ireland in 2013. Going to get desperate and is going to swing for the fences, and he is going to strike out.
The
But I think
problem
he's
is that we won't accept it. Like, when people think, oh my God, he went to get Miles Garrett. Wait, he went to get Max Crosby. None of us are going to. Not one member of this network. I don't think there's one member of the fan base that will be happy because he's gonna mortgage the future to save his job
and I'll be happy with
for
the
one
pass
more
rush.
year.
I'll always take pass
Of
rushers. I love
course,
pass rushers. It's how you win football games. That's part of the way you win football games is rushing a quarterback. But you still have to find a way to fix a lot of holes that you created because you had zero vision and had short-sighted vision to go all in 2023, and you fell on your face, and now you have to fix it all.
yeah.
So to me, it's I think they're going to go all in, and I think they're going to go again and try to spend money and picks, and I think we're going to have a trade announced early
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
If you, but the bigger thing is though, all right, is how do you fix it? If Miami becomes a run game defensive oriented
We'll win
team,
3 games.
well, but even if they're successful at doing that, you get to the point where it's like, okay, I don't need McDaniel anymore.
It's
All
not
right,
that.
and he, that's why I think they're going to fall back on. We got to do something on offense. We're going to have to really. We're going to have to make this explosive again and make this fun again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to work.
Honestly, I rather
Yeah.
them. Honestly, just give me 2023 again with no injuries, and I'll be content because at least you're using your weapons.
At least
That's
you're using the weapons and you're fun.
yeah.
Be fun
Football's a
again.
game. It's supposed to be fun.
But
When they were
Yes.
scoring 10 points a game with these stupid checkdowns and running the ball the way they were, it
Yeah.
was the most. Honestly, I rather. It's like watching Downton Abbey. It was like the most ridiculous nonsense. Well, our Sundays are reserved to watch our favorite team play, and they were giving us literally garbage.
yeah.
Yep.
But the thing is, it was fun in 23. But at the end of the day, like it started getting to the point where you started seeing the writing on the wall, and it was
Yeah.
here we go again, and it's
Yep.
just
Maybe we can get a guy like Andrew Van Ginkel. Wait, we had him.
Oh,
Wait.
what?
Wait,
Why can't we get a
had him.
defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio, man?
We
Damn.
had him.
Oh wait. No, it's the thing. It just feels like a throwaway year. It feels like 2013. We've been here before.
Oh, for sure.
We've been here. We know anybody who's a Dolphins fan when Tua got here, they don't know what we're talking about. But the rest of us, we know. Like even the guys who are diehard. Like I will shout out the guys at the Dive Bar podcast for tuned in. They're great guys. They're mainly positive over there, and that's okay. I'm not saying like don't be excited. But they're they're happy with it, and even those guys have that like hesitant. Like they'll hype you up, they'll get ready for the season, but they have that sense of like, oh God, just that dread. With that impeding dread, it's coming. And until Miami fixes it, and it's going to be one of the things where your accents are so loud, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And until they change it, it's going to have. We're going to feel
it's a
that
culture.
way.
It's a mentality. Yeah. It's that fear. Like I said, there's not one player that scares me on the Miami Dolphins. There's not one player that scares me.
Well, Tyreek, but
Tyreek and Ramsey, but those are guys you didn't get yourself. You didn't develop.
Right. But
you had to go find 2 dogs.
Right, and the thing is that we do not have a good draft history.
No.
We draft average players, good players, and
small players.
And the thing is, I used to be like, oh yeah, people are just crazy, they're just haters or whatever. I used to just be all positive, just ignore everything else, and then the reality set in, and it's like, man, I'm tired of getting hurt at the end of the year, and it's just to the point where when you told me that when you announced it to us that. Ross announced that everybody's staying. I was so deflated. Like,
remember we were on the show? Oh my god!
I don't even want to talk Dolphins anymore.
But by the way, in the end, I look back on it and I do understand. In the end, his hand was forced by Greer to extend. Like, think about where we would be right now. Think about how much faith we'd have in this team had they kept Tua on the 5th-year option. They didn't have to guarantee. They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have the Waddle contract, whatever, and they didn't guarantee Tyreek Hill his money. Well, the mindset of 2025 would be very different.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, fans can tell us, "Oh, you have to extend to it in order to pay players this year. You have to. Well, why was Tua the last one they extended? The Tua's extension was at the very end of the offseason. Training camp was starting, and they already signed all the players for free agency. So, what are we talking about?
If I'm Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, I'm the dissenting opinion from everyone I've spoken to. I'm not giving Brock Purdy $50 million. He doesn't want to take sort of like a mid-level because last year I go back and go get Sam Darnold for 35 or 40, 2 years, 70 million or something. I don't really care because I'm not giving Brock Purdy. I don't care if he's gone to a Super Bowl. That they went there on that defense. They went there because they had McCaffrey and Debo and all that.
And what happened?
And
they still lost. Why? Because the better quarterback.
The better quarterback.
And people say what they want, but what happened this past Super Bowl, even though, like the better quarterback was Hurts.
Well, the Lions
in that game, Hurts was the better quarterback.
You know for a fact that right now, and Greg, before you go, I don't care who it is, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud. I don't care who it is. There's a good 7 to 8 quarterbacks in the AFC that if they started in a Super Bowl versus the Lions and Jared Goff, they will beat the Lions because Jared Goff will lose them the game.
Yeah.
You're going to
say
something,
he did against New England.
Yeah.
And Jimmy G did against him, the Chiefs. So.
All right. And my early prediction sure to be wrong for 2025. All right. I'm betting Brock Purdy to win the MVP.
Ooh. All right.
Wow.
All right.
I think I think San Francisco is going to go and be really good again next year.
No, I already know who's MVP.
That's a transition year, right? So, well, that's what we had this year. Transition year. Transition
the
from
big
not being in a Super Bowl or anything, but being a 7th seed.
No.
Oh no, it was a 5th seed. My bad.
Who knows? By the way, before we have to go, guys, before you like and subscribe, what tells you where the writing is on the wall in 2025 is when a guy, and you guys will know who I'm talking about, interviews for a job, doesn't get it, but then knows how bad it is where he is, that he goes to take the same job with the team that is picking number 1 in the draft. What does that tell you when a guy who's been in that room for the last 5-6 years and Reggie McKenzie. He says, I don't want to go down with Chris Greer. I'm out of here. I'm going to Tennessee.
Well, he didn't have a good track record with the Raiders.
No, but he literally left to go take the same job with a team that's in a worse shape than the Dolphins. But he went back home, but he literally just left for a transition role because he goes, I don't want to be with Chris Greer anymore. Goodbye.
Smart,
He didn't get the job. He took it to he lost the GM position, and the guy who he lost the GM position to offered him a job. He goes, I'll take it.
That's pretty bad.
I'll take it.
I mean, I know he's not the assistant GM. He's a senior something GM, but it's just
advisor.
That's just the give your buddy a job assistant GM kind of thing.
Yeah. But anyways, any final words from the two of you guys? We'll try to keep this as often as you guys shoot me a line. I'll be ready to do a show. So it's when you guys are available.
I hate to sound so deflated. We'll see how free agency goes and if they make the right decisions. But can they? We'll see. We'll see back in free agency and see what happens. And we'll keep an eye on the news because I get a feeling a trade's coming. And look out for a trade. They may trade Tyreek to the Chargers.
But they can't afford that. That's a massive cap hit.
I know. I keep seeing stuff getting
they can't do it.
It's rumor, but
I know. But they're gonna. Greer's not. I know Greer is stupid, but he's not that stupid.
No, he's cap savvy. He's pretty cap savvy.
He'll kill his cap. I
don't want to say cap savvy. He knows how to maneuver cap. I should say it that way.
Like the Jets. The Jets, no matter what, with Aaron Rodgers, they're going to take either this year they're going to take a $45 million dead cap hit, or they defer it and they're going to take a $36 million post-June cut. They could post-June cut him, and next year they take like $15 million this year and a $36 the year after. They're screwed at quarterback. They have to go get a mid-quarterback next year. You were going to say, Greg?
I was going to say, if Greer pulls off a trade like that, he's gotten reassurance that he's going to be around more than a year. Yeah. And that's a scary thought.
Oh, boy. Tyreek is back. Tyreek is back.
No, I'm just saying. I just keep seeing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have to ignore those rumors.
If he makes trades that puts them in cap hill for a year or so,
he's holding on to his job.
He's got a guarantee that he's coming
for
back.
Life.
Yeah, like you said before, Evan, part of the reason he's still here is because it would have been hard to bring in a GM with the mess that they have. And kind of here's a quarterback you're stuck with for at least another year. Here's the money you're stuck with. Here's cap hell. Have fun. A lot of people would have turned it down.
Because by the way, if they don't perform well this year, Brett and Greg, Tua's not here next year, and neither's Tyreek. It's as simple as that. They can get out of both. Tua's contract after year 2 that's a cap number if you cut him that you can actually absorb.
See. You're trying to make sense out of this organization, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, they'll do
something half-assed because that's what they do.
When you open that 1,000-piece puzzle and it's missing 2 pieces, and you're driving yourself crazy. Where are those 2 pieces?
Yeah, I mean,
so they'll trade him a year earlier than they did Ryan Tannehill. Then we literally did the same thing with Tua. Waited the 6 years to see what happens. Jesus.
Yeah,
let me ask you guys, do you have faith in Kellen Moore in New Orleans? I really think that's going to be a disaster. He's going to hold on to the play call sheet, and he's going to be like Mike McDaniel 2.0 in New Orleans. Oh my God!
So I don't. He does not strike me as a head coach.
No.
I think he's been a pretty good offensive coordinator, but he just. What's that saying? And I'm going to screw it up, but you get promoted to your shit. Sorry, shouldn't have said that.
You're allowed to say shit.
You get promoted to your incompetence, right?
Yeah.
And we see that with a lot of coordinators. To me, he's a lifelong OC.
Oh, and by the way, I think. By the way, before we go, I talked to good friends of mine who are Tampa fans. They were all upset that they lost Liam Cohen. Then they saw the Adam Gase 2.0 interview in Jacksonville, and then they saw this weirdo at the podium. Oh my God! I think that guy Liam Cohen is going to be an absolute disaster in Jacksonville. What is Jacksonville doing?
Jacksonville is also another one that's a mess that they keep.
What a mess with their head coach.
Relying on the wrong people, and relying on the guy who ruined San Fran in the front office and basically pissed Jim Harbaugh off enough to leave. That was a bad idea.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll be on as much as we can. Greg, Brett, thank you so much. I really enjoyed doing it with you two guys. Have a good night, all. Fins up.
All right.
Fins up.
Fins up.